Some type of way. I wish I heard you say that maybe what I'm feeling isn't real and the ceiling is falling as my voice is calling for that feeling again. Watch me try to understand, but I can't possibly know. You make me feel alive. You make my lungs feel right.
Hello and good evening. Welcome to the first of the spring season for the Belong Arena's Arena Clash Overwatch group of games. I'm going to be casting today, Big Hungry Phil, and with me is Gio.
Hey! It's gonna be. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
We look very different to John and Blank, so you may be a little bit shocked, being like, "Wow, their surgery went well." But,
yeah, I mean, look, if you've got hints and tips on how you would like us to be more like John and Blank, then keep them to yourselves.
Yeah, I was gonna say, send them in to us, and we will completely ignore them.
Yeah, we'll just burn them, put them straight in the bin. But yeah, feedback always welcome. So, who have we got playing today, Gio?
Today we have got the Invincibles versus Enigmas.
I see. Invincible versus Unknowable. Good. Who wins that fight?
The Enigmas, nobody knows who they are because they're just so enigmatic.
They just turn up into the Belong Arena, shrouded in black, this cloud moving towards you. No one knows what they're like.
Well, the Invincibles is going to be pretty exciting because they actually got into the playoffs last season.
How far did they get? Oh.
They got to quarterfinals and then the Spartans stomped on them a little bit.
So Invincibles. They've named themselves Invincibles, and they got knocked out in playoffs. I think maybe we need to think about a rebrand here.
At least the Enigmas stuck to their name.
They did, yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be pretty good, and we know, of course, what our map pool is going to be already.
Yeah, of course, we're going to be starting off fairly classic fashion. We're going to a King of the Hill map. We're going to Ilios first off, beautiful Greek sunshine. Lots of opportunity for environmental kills, either into that well or off the edge of the lighthouse. That's always going to be good.
Well is actually my favourite map in the whole game, and whenever I tell people that, they think I'm crazy.
It's great.
Yes.
As a Lucio player, like there is no better map in the world for just sinking those 3-pointers.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to put it out now, right at the beginning of the season. I'm basically a Pharaoh one-trick.
I see. Right. Well, okay, fine. Hang on. Are you a Pharaoh one-trick that gets pocketed, or are you a standalone Pharaoh one-trick? Like, do you roll the Pharaoh Mercy? Or?
I don't know if there's a Mercy there who wants to help me out. Depends if I have enough friends on the day.
Okay.
But straight after Ilios, we're going to be rolling on into Route 66 because we're going in for that Escort second.
Yeah.
Shakes things up a little bit. You frequently see Escort being the 4th map in a best of 5 series, but we're just going straight over to America.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Either way you want to, you've got to play all 4 maps, regardless of what happens. And I quite like the direct change because the King of the Hill map 6v6 thing, you get a little bit of that in 2CP and a little bit of that in hybrid, but you leave that completely behind for that moving payload map. So it's quite a nice palette cleanser.
The kind of exciting thing about the Escort maps is you can't draw on them. And so obviously when you go into a hybrid and you go into your assault maps, you can actually have those draws. So you kind of have to wait right till the end of the series to get to that point where you have a definite winner. So
yeah, I think
it's going to be keeping the heart rates up right at the beginning.
It says a lot about where my headspace is at the minute. When you said you can't draw on a payload map, I said, well, unless you get like a screen
you print
over.
It out?
Yeah.
And also, like, the exciting thing about Route 66 is that is that's the map where in the last couple of months we've seen loads of different kind of compositions come out, because that is where famously this quad DPS has started to come out, which is I still find that so crazy because purely based on the fact that prior to the quad DPS, like Route 66 was very well known as quad tank.
Yeah. So
it's sort of like a completely opposite side of the coin. So I think the exciting thing about this means that coming into, all these recent patch changes and things like that, you have this decision that teams have to make where do they stick with kind of what they've been scrimming for a few months and go with these tank heavy, or do they start to play about with some of the new things that we've been seeing going on? And I think Route 66 is going to be the perfect map to see what teams decide and kind of figure out which direction they're going to go with that fork in the road.
Yeah, it's going to be. I would love to see the quad DPS because I can't think the last time I casted a quad DPS map. So please, guys, if you're somehow able to hear us, which I think we've got a delay on the stream, so probably not. I'd love to see some quad DPS. Keep us on our toes.
But then also, our third map being Hanamura. Recently, actually, we've seen a lot of triple DPS come out on that because Hanamura, especially the defense, last patch and the patch before, both 1.3 and 1.30 and 1.31, before the Doomfist nerfs came in, we saw a lot of Doomfist Sombra on the defense, and now what I've been seeing a lot of is the Ash Farah Sombra. So having that kind of triple DPS as well. So
lots of different angles of attack, lots of different threats you've got to respond to. Got to watch out for that Sombra in your back line.
But there's also loads of Orisa and Junkrat as well. I've even seen quite a bit of Torb on Hanamura recently.
Well, I mean, we saw Mangachu pull that out in Open Division.
Mangachu is famous for his Torbjorn, though.
True.
I'm not sure he's playing in this tournament. I don't know, maybe.
No, I think unless he has gone for a serious relocation, I don't think we've got Mangachu playing anytime soon.
Yeah.
If you are there, just ping us a thing so we can talk about that on stream. It's much better. Yeah, so I mean, the thing we haven't talked about, of course, the strat we saw from Finland in the last World Cup, and that Symmetra strat getting boom straight onto point. Do you think we might see that tonight?
Maybe. I mean, it's a little bit niche. And you see it every now and then, especially if you're not running a Lucio and you don't have a composition where you can speed boost straight in. Because obviously, Lucio is a 30% speed boost. If you're using your Amphi-Up, it's 70% speed boost. And one thing that you have to consider when deciding what you're going to attack with on Hanamura is, are you going to run a Winston or are you going to run a Reinhardt? And obviously, a Reinhardt's quite slow moving, whereas a Winston can jump straight through, but then he leaves his team behind. And so having the Lucio can really help keep the team together but also rush through, because getting across that courtyard on Hanamura and getting through the choke point, it's quite infamously one of the sort of worst choke points
it's a real
in
killing
the game.
field.
Yeah.
It's not good.
So that's always something that I'm on the lookout for. But yeah, of course, if you're not running that, or if you're just kind of feeling a bit spicy, you can of course run the Symmetra, get your team across, go straight back to spawn.
Gonna give my fingers crossed to see some Symmetra play tonight. Don't see it that often. But of course, Hanamura, that's map number 3. So we've done hybrid, we've done 2CP. Sorry, we've done payload, we've done 2CP, and next hybrid we're going to Eichenwald.
Eichenwald, yeah, which is. I'm excited to see it because we haven't seen it in competitive play in quite a while in the sort of official map pools that we've seen in some other tournaments. And Eichenwald, again, can bring out a lot of variety. Again, I mentioned the whole Pharah thing, but Eichenwald point 1 is very Pharah-centric. And you also do see a lot of Winston coming out on Eichenwald. It's one of those maps where actually it's almost more down to personal preference. There are a lot of maps that favour one or the other as far as the main tank goes, but it is a lot down to personal preference and playstyle preference. So I think that's where we'll see a lot of the personality of the teams come out, particularly because we'll be seeing, okay, what does this team think their strengths are in? They're not sort of being forced to play a composition type that they feel they kind of have to keep up with the meta. For example, if it were King's Row is very much a Reinhardt map.
Yeah, that's a Reinhardt map.
Yeah, exactly. Both King's Row and Lijiang Tower Control Center. They were the OG Rein Zarya maps before the 3-3 came in and became a thing. So those
are the maps where if you're not running that, then you're more or less throwing.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to move away and have a look now at the different standings for the groups coming through.
Well, all of the standings right now.
Standings with no games played.
So, of course, this week is going to be where Group 1 is playing. You can see Enigmas and the Invincibles on there. So they're right in the middle there. And
so you can see the way they're set up at the minute. We obviously have Saints as the top seed currently at the de facto top of the table. So, the map we're seeing today is between Seed 3, Seed 4. We know from having looked at the SR that actually they're pretty evenly matched, maybe a slight advantage for Enigmas over Invincibles, but we're talking in the range of 30 to 40 SR, and you can lose that or you can gain that in the space of 2 or 3 games. So it's really
having a
still
lever on your
play.
team. But it's true, I think that's going to be something that's really interesting about this first matchup, is they are quite evenly matched as far as their skill goes, and whereas some of the other games that we will be seeing coming out throughout Arena Clash, but even just today, will have these bigger disparities between the average skill rating, and we'll have some players who have switched roles, or they're trying new things, or it really depends on kind of who's available for tryouts and what roles they can get a hold of. So if we can move on to Group 2, which of course we're not going to be seeing today.
Yeah, but again, not an awful lot that we can tell you about these teams. No games played, no wins, no losses. I do have to say that this might effectively be my home team in Group 2 in Vikings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Certainly one of my home teams in terms of
one of them.
One of my home teams.
I'm Phil and I have so many homes.
Yeah, I used to just Monday in one town, Tuesday in another. But no, I actually lived halfway between where these teams are based. So if we ever see them play against each other, I'm going to be super conflicted.
Well, we also have Spartans in this group, which is really exciting because they very narrowly didn't take the title at the end of last season. That did go to Saints, but they are pretty heralded as a very, very good team. They have a number of top 500 players in their team, and also Spartans is one of the newer teams in Arena Clash. That Belong Arena was not built all that long ago, so they're kind of definitely setting a standard for themselves.
Yeah, it's impressive to come from nothing to being right at the top of the group in such a short space of time.
Like, who knew that so many people from a certain area of the country were just really good? Maybe move there if you want to get good.
It is a little strange the way the teams are put together, obviously largely at the discretion of the people at the arenas, that we seem to have. You know, if you look at Saints, if you look at Spartans, all of these really, really top-notch players, whereas we don't have that in some of the other areas. It makes you wonder what the difference in the geographic location has on people. What is it?
If your team name begins with S.
Oh, right. Well, speaking of which, moving on to look at Group 3, obviously Steelers with that S, so another data point in that assumption, currently at the top of the standings there. Again, not a huge amount we can say about these teams. Looking forward to being in a position where we can see some of the strategies they're going to employ and who stands where. I'd love to see a really tight competitive group rather than a couple of standout players.
Well, I'm particularly excited about this group because you mentioned your home team, but the Lionhearts are my home team. That is my closest Belong Arena.
So even more than my potential Hunters Vikings matchup. If we ever have, say, a Vikings Lionhearts matchup, we're going to be really in trouble here.
Yeah, and also I would say Centurions are probably my other. I can keep close to my heart because they're based where I kind of grew up. But Lionheart's definitely my local team. And lastly, we'll look into Group 4 here, where we don't have an S team at the top.
No. So there's a lot of work to do here for Swarm and Smugglers. Look, we really want this pet theory to play out, that it's teams with an S in the name that are going to be at the top. So you guys really need to step up your game and get into that top position. Yeah,
but that also means that if we're wrong in our hypothesis, then we're going to be out of a job by the end of the season. But yeah, no, I'm very excited to see all these teams. As we say, like, we're only going to see Group 1 playing today, but there's obviously time to see everybody else come in and see how these things like start stacking up. And one thing that I always love, like, I'm a huge fan of redemption arcs, and I'm a huge fan of unexpected outcomes. So I would love to see big shakeups where a team who has either not been like the best in the past suddenly shoot up to the top, or a team who has been really great start, like, coming into their own troubles.
I see where you're coming from. For me personally, the trope that I want to see is something more like the Mighty Ducks. So one of the teams that we know has, silver, gold players. Let's see them somehow just, become the plucky underdogs and take out the top 500 ranked players.
Yeah.
That'd be such a that would finally put a line under the Overwatch is not an anime. But we are
take that, Monte Cristo.
Yeah, take that, Monte Cristo. I'm sure he's watching. But we are heading off to sunny Ilios, and we're starting. We talked about it earlier on. Well, the Farah, Lucio, Roadhog, anybody with an environmental kill map. So tell us about what we're going to be seeing coming into this map, or what you can expect to see.
Well, I don't know. We'll see, because there are actually a number of different strategies that get employed frequently on this map. Something I'm quite a fan of is where you run both an Orisa and a McCree, because the whole idea is that you kind of rotate around the entire well area, and you can force the other team to do a rotation that matches what you want them to do, put you in the beneficial position. And obviously, especially if you're running a Zarya, which doesn't look like either of these teams are going to be doing, they're not even running a McCree, but you can really put all your assets, all your abilities into him. But I'm actually a really big fan of the two Ana picks at the moment, because having the Ana means that you can kind of stand back, you don't have to get really caught up in the fray, but you also have those anti-dive potentials using the anti-nades.
Yeah. It's interesting to note that neither team opting to run the Lucio. That's normally such a big advantage if you're the team that picks the Lucio against the team that doesn't, because you get so much.
Have one?
Oh, do you know what? I'm just not paying attention. There's a reason that I'm the play-by-play caster, not the colour caster. So in fact, nice early positioning there from him. This was a classic defensive spot here. A bit of ranged attempt there from Aethon. Maybe not quite enough range on those Hellfire shotguns, but a nice hook there. And secures the DMEC onto the D.Va. That's going to be big. That's a lot of that defensive capability knocked out of the game. Doomfist coming in there with an early dive onto Aethon. Aethon able to back out of the way with that Wraith form. Delstan looking for a nice rotation there, gets the TNT onto the majority of Invincible, sadly taken out. Evade there with a really, really good presence of mind getting in on top of that. But Evade in a really dangerous position here has managed to get DMC and gets a third, gets the... Wow, that's Evade getting 2 really quick there. That's going to be Invincibles taking that point.
Yeah, it actually took quite a while for the point to get capped there, which meant that it was actually such a brawly fight, and I really liked the strategies that sort of both of these teams were going for. We saw this really aggressive Genji, but not only that, bringing out this new Reaper who now has this 50% lifesteal on this patch, and that means that he can kind of go in very deep and deal a lot of damage while also not having to worry too much about going down, which is something that we saw a lot of teams using the Doomfist for in former patches, because he was very good at staying alive, but also Delstan using the Dynamite to try and break through the shields and bring down that Orisa, because Orisa's very hard to bring down, especially with her Fortify ability.
Yeah, especially if... Oh, that was very close there to an environmental kill onto Delstan, using, of course, their only environmental ability. A Bob on the field, every Bob right into the middle of that defensive set, but has caused a bit of a fracture there. Yet to get any kills. A Bob just standing guard on the point, has managed to force them back. That's unfortunate. Delstan with a bit of a misfire on that coach gun, propelling themselves into the pit. Here comes a Dragon Blade. It needs to be a big one for them to regain control. With 2 down, takes down Mighty Cod, takes down Dempsey. That's 2 down, 3 down, with a boop kill coming in from Chelsea. Chelsea secures the DMX carry, gets the Doomfist, and Invincibles flip that point right back around.
Yeah, that Dragon Blade combined with the Supercharger, which gives you the 50% damage boost, means that obviously he didn't have to rely on a nano boost so much, but it meant that he could just cut straight through that Orisa, and you're right, they do take the point, but that was, well, not too much of an investment. It was very well timed, and actually Enigma's coming into to this next fight don't really have much on the board. They're going to have their Transcendence ready, which can protect them in a fight, perhaps against this Death Blossom that we'll see coming out, but there's certainly not an advantage here, and bringing in the Pharah, you want to be able to use the barrage going down onto the team behind this shield, but since they're running a Roadhog, he could very easily hook her out the sky. This is kind of dangerous waters for him.
Yeah, lots of threats, and we're getting very close to one fight territory. 77% capture left on the clock. Enigma's going for a rotation round behind this defensive setup. They've tried their head on a couple of times. It's not really worked out for them. They've got to be quick, though. They've got to be able to get in and take out the... Oh, there's a deep bomb coming in behind the shield. Sadly, doesn't actually capture anything. Delstan able to get a little bit of presence on the point. It's not enough, though. Does buy a bit of space. Mighty Cod falling down. That's it. Main tank down is going to spell real trouble for Enigmas, and we're going to see everybody start to crumble, especially Aethon, doing so much damage, almost uncontested, still has the Death Blossom, still has the Sound Barrier there to help him out. Delstan manages to secure a kill, taking out the Roadhog, and here comes the Death Blossom, forces out the Transcendence. That Zoom Yarder getting in, helping just to keep the team alive, but a big hold there, gets 2 in, but no! Mighty Cod on the Wrecking Ball, able to get out. Unfortunately, not able to survive that barrage. Does get a kill with the barrage and the mech, and they may actually be in a position to take this now. We've still got the Orisa and the Hog on point for Invincibles, and they're able to secure a couple of kills. The Attach doing some big heavy lifting there. D-Mech coming in onto the Diva. This is going to be really hard for Enigmas to come back from. I think this is pretty much wrapped up for them.
Yeah, we saw a lot of panic strategies coming out the end there, like bringing out the Wrecking Balls just to be able to get onto the point fast enough. That Mercy kind of try to hide in the back to keep them alive enough that they even have someone on the point, but the fights aren't really working out in their favor, and Evade, look here, coming in with another Dragon Blade.
Here's a big Dragon Blade. We've seen these going a couple of times. Takes out D-Meese. That's no Zenyatta, no Waterline anyway. Takes out the Ashe as well too, and a boot kill from Chelsea, taking Mighty Cod down into the pit. Just the Baby Diva left alive. No point presence for anybody on the field. No, sorry, just the Mercy. The Mercy and the Pharah. Mercy down first. Whole Hog popped right into the backside of that retreating Mercy, and they secure point 1 on Ilios.
Taste my hook, says Atcher as he brings down the Mercy. Yeah, I think the thing there was Invincibles just managed to gain a lot of control at the start, and they didn't really let it go, because at the start we did see there were 2 Orisas on the field, but the whole thing that Enigmas were trying to do was get behind the shield of Invincibles' Orisa, and that was ultimately what was keeping the team up. They were all staying very close together, and that the Roadhog, which, you know, Roadhog's a very easy hero to feed on, but the fact that he was keeping the Enigma's DPS far back. We saw actually Delstan, while he was on the Pharah, try to bait out the hook so that he would be able to go in a little bit deeper, but it just wasn't enough, especially with Evade. He just had a formidable Genji.
Yeah, Evade doing some real heavy lifting with that Dragon Blade. A couple of, 2 kills out by Dragon Blade, twice in a fight is pretty good value. Enigma's looking to try and take control on the high ground box here. Evade looking to get a couple of angles, maybe get in and try and take out that Ana early in the fight would be an absolutely huge pick. Charge coming in from Mighty Cod, not able to secure anything, but it does look like Invincibles may be slightly on back foot in terms of positioning. But they need to be careful because Enigmas have left their Ana in a very dangerous, very vulnerable position here. Invincibles not able to... Oh, as I say it, they have capitalised, and as Ana out the fight, big charge coming in from Redstones, and Redstones has ultimate already, and that's two... Oh, that's unfortunate. That hammer down coming right into the barrier, and the High Noon not able to secure anything either, thanks to a really, really timely sound barrier from Demis. This, actually, as we've been talking, Enigmas have been able to cap the point. There's been so much going on, I didn't even notice that. Evade has a Dragon Blade that doesn't even need to be a big one. There's 3 people left on point, one of those being a baby D.Va, so they can save this for the next fight. It's looking pretty good here for them to recap.
Yeah, Invincibles finally managed to get that point, I think a lot thanks to Evade, but I wasn't a huge fan of using the Earth Shatter or even the Deadeye to try and bring them down, because a lot of the team were a little bit far behind. They weren't going to be able to catch up in time and capitalize on those 2 ultimates. I mean, the Deadeye, yes, it can often be used for zoning to try and get people to move out the way, but you were going against a Doomfist who can kind of just come and punch you in the face, and he did. He escaped very quickly and he can move very fast, but the Earth Shatter really would have been a lot more valuable to have in this next fight.
Oh, here we go. We've got a nano boosted Genji, and he finds one. He finds one with the dash kill. Nothing from the blade itself there. Fire Strike takes out Mighty Cord. Actually, only one from Evade. Not quite such a good Dragon Blade this time, but certainly good at causing Enigmas to scatter before him.
Yeah, but what was really good about that Dragon Blade is it forced out the Meteor Strike from Zenzetsu, which means he doesn't have that to use in the future, and that's obviously can be used very much against their Ana, and particularly against these heroes that don't have that much mobility, and especially someone like that who has to wait in the backline.
But it's looking good in terms of ultimates for both sides, actually. We've nearly got 4 on side for Enigmas. We've got 3 on side for Invincibles. So I think this next fight is going to come down to who can time their ultimates best.
Yeah, maybe, but Invincibles are holding a lot of control over this narrow walkway here, and with a Graviton on their side ready to go, this is going to be pretty hard.
Oh, but that's absolutely huge. Gets the majority of the team in that Earth Shadow and swinging in with that hammer. Comes in, finds the Ana as well, but gets slept on the way in. But that's pretty conclusive there for Enigmas.
Well, I guess it doesn't really matter if you're holding control of a narrow walkway with a grav ready to go. If you've got an Earth Shatter going off in your face, then
yeah, not what you can do about that.
But that does mean that that Magna has to kind of be on the lookout on this this next fight, because they're still waiting for Atcha to use that Graviton Surge, and that can be fight changing. That can sway who is in favor, and if Invincibles do manage to flip this back in their favor, this is going to be, as you mentioned before, like a one-fight territory, and that's a really dangerous spot to be in.
Yeah, it's at 82%, and High Noon gets the bubble in, not able to find anything. That sound barrier coming in over the top stops any last-minute charge. A Graviton committed into the fight. Here comes the Dragon Blade in over the top. It finds 2, actually 2 coming in from Redstones. Redstones unfortunately taking down Delstan, able to just stand there and tank a lot of that damage with the passive ability buff to Reaper. So actually a lot of ultimates invested in this fight, and it hasn't resulted in a flip yet. So we've still got Delstan alive, no ultimates are left. We do have Chelsea's sound barrier. Is that going to be enough? I don't know. High charge on Atcha. They need to be quick if they want to generate another ult, but we're getting close to one-fight territory for either team, regardless of how this fight goes.
Yeah, that really didn't go the way that Invincibles wants.
It's another big one. Finds 2 with that. Takes out a third with the hammer on their own. Atcha and Redstones. A lot of heavy lifting being done by this tank lineup. It's not going to be enough. Zenzetsu having to get out of there, unfortunately, having committed. Oh, that's unfortunate. Having committed the Meteor Strike.
That was really close. I was actually, I'm liking these game-changing Earth Shatters here, and I also really like that they used the Graviton after the sound barrier had been used, which meant that that wasn't able to shield them, and combining that with the Dragon Strike made it a really good ultimate combination.
Yeah, but we've got, in terms of ultimate combinations, we have the sound barrier in over the top of the Dragon Strike, over the Dragon Blade, and the Nano coming in at the end means a little bit of additional damage, helping just for clear up there, and Invincibles looking pretty strong. It's just the poor Mighty Cod on the Wrecking Ball, not quite able to keep that alive.
Well, they finally managed to get it at the end there, which means Invincibles are, of course, going to take Ilios. And actually, I thought it was really great how Enigmas did manage to hold on to the point even after Invincibles were using all of those ultimates. But, you know, the thing is I think I see Invincible's secret, and that, well, it's not much of a secret, is it? Is that Evade can build up his Dragon Blades so quickly that even if they maybe don't win a fight, if he's got it ready for the next fight, they're actually going to be in a really advantageous spot. And especially when you've got an Ana on your team as well, she can provide that nano boost, give you the 50% damage boost. You know, we saw what he did with the Orisa supercharger. Forgetting my words. The Orisa supercharger, which is the same amount of damage boost, and I think Evade is just lethal, and I would recommend to Enigmas to maybe start going for a little bit more of an anti-dive.
Yeah, got to hard focus that Genji if that Genji is going to be completely on you the whole time. One thing I wanted to talk about briefly, and sorry to lead you on this, is it seemed a little bit on that first point like Enigmas realised they had to make a change, but they made it a 75% capture percentage.
This is a problem that we've seen in a number of teams. You always kind of catch it in competitive tournaments, and that is that teams will maybe go in, especially on like Control, maybe not win the fight, and they're like, okay, well we're going to stick with it, we're going to try and win the next fight, we'll build up our ultimates, but then they use the ultimates and they don't work, and by that point it's a bit late, or either they don't use the ultimates, realize it's not working, then they switch and they have to build up all the ultimates again, as you say, and that's kind of a really big problem, especially in a fast-moving map type like Control, and you obviously have so much more chances. It's constantly quoted, I don't remember the exact percentage, but it's constantly quoted that you have so much more of a chance of capping the point in Control or rather of winning the point if you are the first to cap.
I feel like the number I remember is 67%.
It's
whether or
like
not
that.
It's about that sort of
we'll
area.
Go with it.
Yeah.
No.
Just make up a number and sound authoritative. That's how statistics work.
Yeah, just hope no one asks you for a source. But yeah, that's definitely true, and that's why you kind of have to be really sure about what it is that you want to go with as far as compositions go. And on these kind of more, especially the payload maps, the Escort and the Hybrid, you have a little bit more time to make those decisions. But it's definitely true that on Control, that is something you need to think about. And it's true, the Enigmas were very much making decisions based on what Invincibles were doing, whereas Invincibles were playing their own game.
Yeah, and you mentioned you have a bit more time to make those decisions on a payload map, and here we are at a payload map moving over to Route 66. So we've seen these teams eschew the triple tank, triple support lineup that everyone knows and loves as GOATs. We've seen them run
Everyone loves. I'm not sure about that one, Phil.
Yeah, sorry, of course, we're no longer on camera, so you couldn't see the air quotes I put over
the
loves.
/S.
So yeah, we've seen them eschew the heavy tank support lineups in favour of DPS, so maybe we're going to get something like a quad DPS. Maybe let's not rule it out completely.
Perhaps. I mean, look, Enigmas, they're starting on the defense, and that actually gives you a little bit of an advantage. You'll find that in certain tournaments where the winner or the loser or whoever gets to choose whether they're attacking or defending first, you frequently see that they decide to defend first, because it gives them more intel as far as how far they need to go, what sort of things they need to be considering when they go into their attacks. So they're coming out with they actually really like running Zenzetsu on this Doomfist. I'm wondering if like maybe one trick. And actually something I find really interesting about here, this Phil, is look, they're holding on big Earls, which is really not that common. It really gives Invincibles a lot of free movement of the payload, whereas quite frequently you will see a defensive hold be done pretty much at the spawn on an Escort map.
Yeah, and especially when they're holding with a Doomfist, because it means the Doomfist has to get into the fight with no backup and back out again. So it's going to be really tricky for them, I think, to use this hold, especially in the face of this Bastion. And Evade there, backing up the Bastion, getting a bit of help from his Mercy and from his Orisa there, secures one kill, so that's off tank down. Enigma's one down in the fight already, and Evade just getting in, looking for these supports, trying to get a little bit of early damage. A mighty COD falling, so you've got no main tank, you've got no off tank. It's not looking good for Enigmas here. This pirate ship strategy for Invincibles just rolling through pretty much uncontested.
It's just disgusting. And the other thing with running this pirate ship is it means if anybody does try to dive on the Bastion, you got the Ana who can just throw a nade straight on, and not only does that provide healing for the Bastion, but it provides that mitigation of healing for the enemy, and therefore you've got to try and get out on your own without being able to receive healing from your team, and that really puts the Enigmas in a very dangerous position. Although we've seen Zenzetsu now switching on to Soldier, maybe he's shaking things up a bit.
Maybe he heard you call him a one-trick and he decided, no, I can play Soldier as well. I'm at least a two-trick. So we have got a Tyre on board for Delstan. This could be, if it can get the right people with this Rip Tyre, it could be really big. It could be absolutely game-changing. If they can dislodge the Bastion, then the fight gets blown
I
wide
suspect
open.
that'll be what he's going for, but obviously there is the risk that it's just going to get completely destroyed before he has a chance to get there.
Yeah, it could well happen, so it's got to be tricky, it's got to be sneaky. Here it comes in, round the back, finds both supports. That's quite a big pick, but of course, Aethon still ensconced there, takes out 129, takes out Mighty Cod, so you may have taken out the healers, but you've got to start doing the damage to the Bastion to take them out, and so far there is no one there contesting this Bastion.
Yeah, he saw an opportunity, he took it. I'm not quite sure what Zenzetsu is going after someone else, allowing himself to be completely distracted here, and it just means that, as you say, this Bastion Aethon is just being able to kind of have free damage. He does have the tank mode ready though, and one thing that you do need to be careful of when you have especially offensive ultimates is you don't want to hold onto them for too long, because it means it's even longer until you can build the next one, and you want to be able to build as many as possible. So maybe he's thinking, well, I haven't been dislodged, so why would I want to dislodge myself? Like, am I going to be able to get back onto the payload if I, change my positioning? But I would quite like to see it.
Oh, this is interesting, opting to run the Winston right into... There we go, they finally did it. They have got Aethon off of the payload, but this Dragon Blade from Evade says, no, we actually don't need a Bastion. I'm just going to kill stuff and buy space for Hikari to res Aethon, and the Diva Bomb in secures. We're nearly at that team kill bell, just Zensetsu left on the Genji. That's all of them down, so he got tank form, but of course there's nobody there left to tank, and he can just get back on the payload at his leisure.
I mean, it was quite smart from Enigmas to switch Zensetsu over to the Genji, because it meant he could use his deflect, which is actually what caused a lot of damage as the Bastion was shooting. But of course, Evade coming in with his, at this point, quite famous Dragon Blade just kind of shut the team down.
Yeah, it was a brave attempt at a dive there, sending Dempsey into Aethon, but of course so much damage from Aethon means that you've got to dive with the whole team or everyone is just going to fall over, and it seems like Invincibles cannot be stopped on this pirate ship. Hardly any time on the payload for Enigmas.
We were thinking, okay, it might be like a relatively even matchup. These teams do have quite similar skill ratings, but it could just be, one thing that you have to consider massively when talking about teams that play together is, okay, your skill rating might be one thing, but do you have that synergy? Do you have that way you can play as a team? And actually, Invincibles may just be very lucky that they have a carry.
Well, but let's not get too controversial on the stream.
But I do really suspect that it's kind of Enigmas. I don't think it's even necessarily that they don't know what they're doing as a team or can't play together. I think it's that they just aren't necessarily making the decisions one step ahead of Invincibles. And seeing Zenzetsu earlier get really distracted by members of Invincibles way away from the Bastion, and he was over on the low ground by the spawn rather than actually taking a position that would allow him to get some vision on the Bastion. Not only was he sort of feeding over ult charge, but he also wasn't building up his tac visor, which is something that he could have attempted to use. And I think these are things that they just need to think about, is this kind of coordination amongst one another as a team.
Yeah, it is unfortunate when you get that sort of big pick that we saw from Delstan taking out both supports. There has to be ringing bells in the team to say, okay, now we kill Bastion because he can't be kept alive, and it is a real shame that we didn't see that level of coordination.
Yeah, and I was actually a really big fan of that Reptar. I thought it was smart because I would imagine that going for the Bastion was probably in his mind, but the supports were there, you may as well get rid of them. But look, Invincibles are setting up the defense at the exact same place that Enigmas did. I'm really actually intrigued by this. Maybe it's because it allows them to kind of stay very together. They don't have to worry about making a rotation when they have these more static heroes like the Orisa, like Anna even. But that said, they do have a Lucio who could speed them around, but it does mean they do have this high ground. Oh, but here's the Ashe Dynamite.
Dynamite
try and break down the shield.
Yeah, it gets a lot of people in that. So this is an interesting lineup. We've got sort of a variant on triple support, triple tank coming in for Enigmas, but unfortunately that shield going down really, really quickly is problematic. Got the solo dive coming in. Mighty Cod diving in, does manage to get out more or less without getting too much damage, but Evade with an early pick, 129 going down in the fight. But they're actually not really contesting the payload. Yes, they've got a couple of picks, and there's the second Zensetsu going down. Poor Zensetsu not having got a look, and a really early Dragon Strike right through the middle. Of course, a bit of mobility on the side of Invincibles means they were able to get out of the way, and Aethon just on the low ground doing what they can to take out the remaining players here.
Yeah, and that big anti-nade there on Enigma's two tanks puts you at a really big disadvantage. Of course, you want to be led by your tanks, and I have to question the Roadhog pick a little bit. I suspect it's because maybe they thought the Invincibles would bring out the Bastion again, and getting that hook in can pull him out from behind that shield and give them a better chance of getting rid of him. But I think especially when you're running a Reinhardt, you want to be running that Zarya to provide the bubble, but he's actually quite close to Whole Hog now, so
Yeah,
I don't know if he'll be changing. It looks like he's still going to be coming out on it, and I'm interested to see what he's going to achieve with it.
Yeah, there's none of the classic tank synergies you expect here, but of course if he can get a good pick with that hook, then that could really open that. Well, that's unfortunate. Went fishing, didn't find any fish. 93% on the whole hog though. This could be the ultimate that turns the fight, because they're all obliging him and turning up right in the middle of his whole hog. Here we go, manages to get the Roadhog and almost the Orisa in that, but it's buying a lot of space for his team to get in. Atcha and Aethon though, managing to just completely deny any value from the space that was got there, especially Aethon with the big bob play.
And now for next episode on Geo's questions is, why was he using the whole hog when Invincibles had just had their nade landed on them? You know, that gives them a lot more protection, a lot more healing, and I'm really kind of confused as to why he just didn't wait like the extra time. Maybe he thought this was it, this is the opportunity, I've got to do it now, but personally I don't think that was ever really going to work, with the Dragon Strike ready to come out.
Yeah, it's this could be big if they are nice and obliging and line up right in front of that Dragon Strike. It's going to be a big ultimate. But Enigmas have made a couple of changes here. We've got a Widowmaker, we've got a Mei. It's an interesting set of picks. I'd love to see them make this work. It makes for some really interesting play. It's already starting to pay dividends. DMC taking out the Redstones means that they've got no main tank. Obviously still a bit of value from the shield still staying up. It's a nice high Diva Bomb, but of course everyone able to just get in and out of the way. Dragon Strike coming in right over the payload. Sound Barrier comes in, denying any real value from that. Mighty Cord gets shattered, and that's going to be pretty much all she wrote for this team fight. Evade on the other Shimada brother here, doing some more real work.
Yeah, and Zenzetsu did actually manage to land that sleeve onto Atcha, but the self-destruct didn't come in time to actually capitalize off it. But yeah, it looks like they're just not really having a very good day here. The Orisa pick, I think, was supposed to kind of be their way in, because having that shield there was what was really causing them a lot of problems, and would also prevent the build-up of the supercharger, which is actually very close to being online. But now Enigmas, they haven't got that long left. They've only got just over 20 seconds, and Delston switching on to the Winston here, and Magna probably going to try and use that use the primary fire to slow down these tanks a little bit, maybe build up that blizzard and prevent Invincibles from trying to jump onto the payload.
Yeah, well, we've seen with that ultimate has come online, and Invincibles are being nice and obliging and staying in one place, so we may see that Blizzard come out. Blizzard has come out onto the fight, but it's well, you know, that's a key pick, that 50% damage offline. Enigma's looking like they might have finally punched a bit of a hole in this defense. DMC able to do a bit of work. I think we've just got the Orisa and Lucio left for Invincibles. If they can clear this off the point, they may finally cap this in overtime. But frankly, the time bank that Enigmas had on their that Invincibles had on their offensive run, Enigma's not looking to match anywhere near that.
Yeah, Enigmas, there's no way they're going to be able to get the 4-minute 35. They do have about 2.5 minutes now ready to go. Oh, nice one from DMC. And actually, I'm quite a fan of this Widowmaker pick, but I think he just has to make sure his positioning is correct. And sometimes, right now, actually, this is pretty good. But on that previous point, like, I would have liked to see more of an effort to flank around and get behind that Orisa shield. And I think that was causing a lot of the stall. But this is...
Well, that's unfortunate. I was about to celebrate that pick there, but of course, actually able to take that out straight away. But Widow on Widow violence there. DMC taking out his opposite number on Evade. Evade deciding they want to try and get the upper hand here by switching to their own Widow, but Mighty Cod falling, and Invincibles coming roaring back into this fight.
It just seemed like a very unnecessarily aggressive fight, especially given that not all of the team were there by DMC. I would have preferred to have seen Enigmas kind of reconvene and make sure they were taking a fight together. And yeah, you know, obviously, like, you see fights go kind of a bit further ahead than the payload at times. Oh, Evade's now,
like this positioning.
He's now switched over onto his own Widowmaker, and this is going to make DMC's job a lot harder, especially now he's dead.
Yeah, not a lot he can do in the spawn room. That's unfortunate.
The whole point is that you try and distract each other.
Oh, I see. Right, yeah, tie up the Widows in the Widow v Widow. So we've got a couple of ults online. We've got the Diva Bomb, which, if it lands in the right place, could be big, but of course, Redstone's being up and having that shield. Oh, look at that! Heroic hook from the Hawk! Pulls it right out of the line of fire. It's got to be so frustrating if you're the Mighty Cod right now.
Yeah, I think so. But actually, you know, while it's frustrating, Invincibles don't really have to worry that much, because we're under a minute time left for Enigmas to even make this push. And I keep seeing the same thing, where they're all kind of getting distracted in amongst their own fights. between other people, and now they've received that anti-nade and actually coming out with the whole
Big
hog.
shatter as well, takes out 3. They've got to be careful, they've got to take out the Mei here, because the Mei does have that ultimate online. It's a hell of a wall from the Mei, taking the charge right to the front of that wall. 25 seconds though.
25 seconds is
Can
not
it be
long.
done?
This is pretty much the last chance that they have, and I would imagine. Oh, is Magna gonna? Okay, I didn't know if he's gonna go in and click on H then, but he does have the Blizzard ready to go. But Ethan's here using that Deadeye. He should be able to try and hold back Enigmas. I imagine they will try and use that Blizzard, but you have to remember, actually, Invincibles didn't fall to the Blizzard last time.
Evade is being just every hero they've picked, they've been so strong on. That's 2 in really quick succession. Aethon manages to find the Deadeye kill onto the 129, and this is it. That's all over, I think.
Yeah, it's all over time, more
Whee.
like, as it ticks down, and of course Enigmas aren't going to be able to take that point, which means that actually the next game is going to be match point.
Yeah, but you know, it's maybe been a little bit heavily in favour of Invincibles. Let's not count Enigmas out just yet. Maybe they're one of these teams that needs 2 warm-up games. Maybe now that they've had this little bit of warm-up, we're going to see them really pop off in that next map and take us all the way to map 5. But of course, Invincibles looking pretty strong at the minute. If this hasn't been warm-up for Enigmas, I don't know what they're going to do going forward.
Something that I found very interesting actually is on Enigmas we've seen some of the players switch roles. So we saw Delston play both DPS with the Junkrat. He also played the Winston and the Reinhardt, so he's been on main tank as well. And then we saw Zenzetsu. He played both the Ana and of course the Doomfist that we saw. So actually we've seen like a few different changes, and I'm wondering if maybe that lack of true cementing of who is playing which role, which means that obviously you haven't had solid practice on just one role and really getting to grips with what that role requires, then maybe that's where some of their issues are coming from.
Yeah, it certainly seems likely that, you know, not having let's call it specialization. You know, even if that is just my specialization is I play all tanks, it makes, you know, it changes how you respond to things in a fight. It changes your what aspect of game sense you need to hold on to.
Yeah, and that's a really important thing that you need to remember, is especially at like high level gameplay. And you know, if as they go through the season, especially if they make it into playoffs and they start playing teams from other groups, you know, they're gonna be coming across players who do have higher SRs than them, who are used to playing at a higher level, and they need to be able to know that they have this definite knowledge of what it is they're supposed to be doing and what their role is on a team, and especially in a meta where the team play is infinitely more important than your mechanical skill. That's something that you can't really afford to lose out on, and I'm a little bit concerned for the Enigmas that this is maybe a shortfalling of theirs that they're going to have to put in extra time to overcome and be a little bit more decisive over who is playing which role.
Yeah, I think you touched on an interesting point there, which is that so much, you know, when you're against teams that are, you know, also, you know, top 500 Grandmaster whatever teams, your mechanical skill is kind of out the window. It is all about how you interact as a team.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that we might be seeing as we are coming out of the long dark tunnel that is the GOATS meta, and we're starting to see some more DPS picks, actually all that time spent playing this triple tank, triple support lineup where you have to be constantly in sync.
Yeah.
We're seeing some of that come through to our DPS players. They've spent so long playing Brigitte.
Or Zarya for that matter.
Or Zarya for
Not
that
everyone's
matter.
in Brig Jail.
Yeah. Brig Jail. You know, so we've seen them actually come out of GOATS with a much better grasp of how to work as a team and teamwork in general.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It kind of comes down to how long you've been playing together, how experienced are you on your hero, and how much do you scrim? Because like scrims are something that you actually have to consider quite strongly when it comes to like high level competitive play, because you can't really just kind of waltz into a game that you're playing in a series and expect that to go well. And obviously in a tournament like this, where these are just kind of, these aren't pro players, they're not getting paid to do this, and this is voluntary, and they've, you know, been good enough, they've trialed for these teams, which is great, but it means that not everyone can guarantee that they have the time to be putting into scrims as maybe another team. And those are things that, to an extent, not everybody can actually do something about that, and like that's a shame, but that's where you have to make sure that you're working on your synergy, and in your spare time you're being able to play with the other players on your team, get to know how each other work, maybe, you know, look at other VODs. I know so many players who learn so much from looking at other players' VODs, and it's not, as we say, it's not just about like, can you click heads? Can you do a really good flick while you're playing a hit scan player? Especially not in a meta that's just been and gone.
Yeah, it's not can you click heads, it's can you click heads as a team.
Can you click heads? It's can you use your head?
We.
But yeah, no, I totally agree. But also you have to give props to the fact that Invincibles, they have, I mean, you've got to bring up Evade again. But not even him, you know, obviously like the DPS players are often the big playmakers and they're the stars of the show, and that's why everyone wants to insta-lock them into
everybody in my ladder games always insta-locks DPS players.
But you also, I love watching Ana, because I think there is so much that goes into playing Ana, because there is the mechanical skill, but you've also got to be able to have the mind of a support player. And of course, she's often played by the flex support player, but you do often see the main support player also playing her, especially if you're getting double flex support competitions. But you have to get your timings perfect, and especially if you're going up against a diva, you don't want your nade to be eaten. You have to make sure do I nano the DPS player to get all the damage, or do I nano the tank to keep them alive, and things like this. And the Ana on the side of Invincibles was getting those anti-nades always perfectly.
Yeah, really, really top level play.
Yeah, I was really impressed, and I'm excited to see how the next part of the series goes. Obviously, as we said at the beginning, Hanamura is going to be
it's an interesting map, I think. Has a little bit of a tendency to maybe get stuck on that second point. It's quite common for people to cap first point.
Classic assault, am I right?
Yeah, and unless you can just like steamroll in on the back of a load of ultimates, then there's not a lot you can do.
I mean, that's the thing, is like the ideal is to snowball and just go straight through, which is actually something I saw in a game I was casting the other day, and I'd never seen a snowball that successful. But also something I kind of mentioned it at the beginning, but something about Hanamura is this is another one of the maps where we've been seeing more creative compositions come out, and especially these DPS centric, and especially these two teams have shown so far they don't want to be playing like the straight up 3-3. They are done with that meta. And so I want to be seeing kind of what it is that they really flourish on.
Yeah, and I think we are starting to see that a little bit. If you look at Evade being given the chance to play Genji, Hanzo, and Widow, you know, we're seeing people really being given the space to flex here.
Yeah, and so obviously the Enigmas, they're going to be starting on the defense once again. I know, Phil just gave me the biggest look of disappointment when he saw the Invincibles do look like they're going to be running a GOATS composition, but Enigma, they're bringing everything just switched. Never mind. It is actually going to be Invincible starting on the defense.
There we go. That makes slightly more sense.
So yeah, Evade on the Widowmaker, we did just see a little preview of what he can do with it, and he clearly has the mechanical skill for it. But also Athan on the McCree, so that you have that anti-dive, you can use the flashbang to prevent a dive coming in, but it also means that if a Pharah were to come through, which we've seen a lot of in competitive play recently, then the Pharah would have a really hard time. But of course Enigmas don't look like they're going to be running such a composition.
No, Enigmas, having spent so long, the two of us saying, oh, it's really good that we're seeing them play some DPS heroes, are running the triple tank, triple support lineup, but actually with an early kill there takes out Zensetsu, so this Ana version of GOATS, if you lose the Ana, that's kind of it, I'm afraid. And Evade with a quick 2. It's a valiant effort from the 129 on the Lucio, but it's going to take a bit more than that to contest the point.
It's always the Lucio who you find dancing around trying to get that tick, but they weren't able to get that first tick, the 33%, which sometimes you see a defending team completely forget the point, and actually the Lucio is able to do that. But I really like the timing that we saw. Again, I mentioned it before, but with the anti-nade and then the redstones going straight in for that charge to completely eradicate the Reinhardt very, very quickly. And we're also seeing a very aggressive Zarya here who'll be able to build up the ult charge really quickly and get high charge.
Speaking of ult charge, here's a shatter, and it finds building a lot of space for Atcha there to get a quick triple, and then a 4 from Chelsea with the biotic grenade. That's going to be one big reset, and we're going to see the baby diva
nice
storm.
stagger, bro.
Oh,
oh, big rip.
Such a shame.
But, I was talking about it, but Atcha coming in with a really high charge. He was up into 92, 93 there and just able to completely mow down with his microwave the rest of the team. And that means that he does have the Graviton Surge, which is something you have to be very aware of coming in through these narrow choke points, because there isn't really another entrance into the point unless you have the vertical mobility. So this is going to be, again, a really big responsibility on Magna to try and catch this out.
Yeah, Mighty Cod getting right in there and swinging, but out comes the Graviton Surge, gets almost all of them in there. Deep Sea managing to take out Aethon's pretty big. Redstone secures 1 with the Fire Strike, 2 with the Hammer, Chelsea with the follow-up on the D-Mech. Ikari brings Aethon back into the fight, and we are now moving the brawl on to the point. It's a big sleep onto Redstones, but is that going to be enough? I don't think so.
Yeah. Enigmas were able to kind of get on the point there, but they were outnumbered, and of course, Redstones, he got slept, but it was just a power nap.
Oh, yeah,
and he came back with a vengeance.
Coming back refreshed. But we're starting to see Invincibles, despite them not running the triple tank, triple support lineup, they are managing to cycle their tank ults. So, we saw Atcha pop theirs in the last fight. We've got Redstones with the Earth Shatter online, so we're probably going to see Atcha with another one in the fight. Rally comes in on top of the fight. Oh, that's such a big shatter. It gets almost all of them, and the nade in over the top. But it doesn't actually secure anything. There's no kills. But the Diva Bomb will help get a couple kills there. Hikari brings Redstones back into the fight, but Invincibles on the back foot here. Enigmas look like they're finally going to cap it. Cost them a lot of ults. Snowball might not be an option, but looking pretty good here going into point B.
I would recommend that Evade probably try and move towards the next point now, because I don't really want to be hanging around. Although a fight could be staying on this point.
Yeah, Redstones did manage to get most of the way to the ultimate just in that last little swing of the hammer. It stopped a lot of the... in fact, they even managed to stop the cap for a couple of seconds there.
Yeah.
They got 4 minutes 40 seconds on the clock for Enigmas to camp this. They've got Lucio ult online, but
they have Lucio ult, but they're not going to have that Graviton Surge because Deemsy just decided to throw it in the middle of the courtyard in the last fight. Again! And also the Nano going down onto the Mighty Cod. It wasn't the Nano, sorry, he was just very, very high charge, but you can't do anything if you're just like booped down into a hole, especially as a Reinhardt who doesn't have the vertical mobility. You've got to make the entire commute completely around.
Yeah, look how quick this is though. Aethon with a swap onto Tracer already has Pulse Bomb, helps secure a kill there and just completely blow Enigmas off the point. So it cost them a lot of ultimates, but they're looking pretty strong here, and they've got the Graviton back online.
Yeah, and this is the thing, is what you mentioned before, is they're cycling their tank ultimates very well, and so, even though the Redstones doesn't have his Earth Shatter, because he obviously just used it, he should be able to build it up if they continue to get these cyclical tank ults. Off the Graviton Surge, he can go in, use his hammer and get that cleave damage and be able to build up the rest, but actually he's pretty close to it, he may not even need it.
Yeah, we might see them somehow cycling both ults together in sync. That'd be impressive if you can.
Tandem.
So yeah, it needs to be a big ult from Enigmas here, a big couple of ults from Enigmas here. Evade takes out Magnalix, and Aethon with the ring the team kill, boys.
There you go.
How do you cast a fight that's over in 2 seconds?
But there you go, the Redstones does have his Earth Shatter up, just like the Oracle Phil predicted. And I really like that we're seeing the Invincibles make use of actually both these high grounds on either side. It's quite hard to get up onto that high ground over there that we see Evade on now, because there's no stairs up there. And oftentimes you'll see like a Symmetra teleporter be used to access, but it makes it also not only is it hard for the defending team to get up there, but of course the attacking team, and so that means that they've got another distraction on the side that they have to deal with.
We saw actually twin sleeps there, sleeping a Reinhardt and a Diva either side. Enigmas have got to be careful coming into this choke, because that's exactly what I was going to warn them about, guys. Graviton Surge, hammer down, coming in over the top, lots of tank ults coming into the fight. Big Diva Bomb takes out 2. This is exactly the opening that Enigmas needed. They've got the rally online.
They're going to get a tick.
There we go, they've got the first tick, 5 people online, so we're just going to see Invincibles are going to have to get in and just do what they can to stall here. They've got to be quick, because we're nearly there. We've nearly got everything online. 5 people online for Enigmas, only 3 coming in for Invincibles, and a sleeping Reinhardt in the form of the Mighty Cod, taking another one of those power naps, coming back refreshed. Evade pretty much uncontested up here, of course, means they can't do an awful lot to get in and actually help with the fight, but it doesn't matter if you can take out the enemy mana. So for that looked like it was going to get rolled, but Invincibles might actually secure this.
Yeah, it does mean now they only have 1 tick left to go, and Hikari, we saw desperately trying to use that Valkyrie to keep everyone alive as they kind of filtered back in from the spawn there, and it worked, especially with those 2 headshots that Evade managed to get. And it is all this sort of almost like a tunnel vision from Enigma. I mean, of course, when you've got limited time, they have a minute, almost an hour and a half then. That'd be a long time. They have a minute and a half left to get this last tick, but it means they're not focusing on the things that are going up on the other sides, and especially when they're running a Reinhardt instead of a Winston, it means that they can't jump up and actually access and make a dive onto those heroes.
There's a lot of really impressive sleeps coming in just for who they hit in the middle of these targets, but Evade on the side there taking out Zensetsu with a minute left on the clock. That's really difficult ground for Enigmas to come back from, especially when you've got a high charge area with a Graviton Surge ready to go, just looking for that defense matrix to come off. I'm quite sure we've actually got... Ooh, that Earth Shatter came out right into a barrier, and the counter shatter there from Mighty Cod, that's pretty big. The charge they're taking out Aethon. Enigmas pop the sound barrier. This is maybe their last chance of doing this. 43 seconds left on the clock. They need to get in and start just contesting this point. That's unfortunate that we lost Hikari in that to the high charge, the 100 charge Dempsey, but Evade, again, just almost uncontested up there. He was able to just pick out the targets they want. Earthshatter coming in, Graviton as well finds Aethon. Invincibles take control of the point once more with 22 seconds left to go.
Yeah, Enigmas have only got 1 more chance to take this point, and they're either going to have to rely very heavy on the Lucio to get them there, or we see, as I thought, the Mighty Cod will be switching over there onto the Wrecking Ball to actually attempt to get into this point very quickly. But it does mean that it could be a very vanilla fight. I'd imagine we'll see Magna trying to use that self-destruct, but actually having Invincibles not block off this narrow opening up in the corner here, this might be what Enigmas are after.
Yes, unfortunately nothing coming out of that Diva Bomb. Aethon and Evade, the duo DPS line of Invincibles, just absolutely picking Enigmas apart. We've just got the Diva and then the Diva mech. We've got Zarya coming in for the last second contest, but it's not going to be enough when Evade can do more or less what they like on this point.
25-player kill streak, did you see that at the end there? And that's what happens when no one on the attacking team cares that you're up in the rafters. You can just sit there. The whole point with when an enemy team is playing a Widowmaker, this is why we so frequently see a Widow being countered with Widow, because it means that the Widowmakers have to play those mind games amongst themselves and actually try and bring the other one down. And it almost turns the fight into a 5 versus 5 because the Widow's job is to deal with them. And it also... That's why sometimes you'll see a Widow go against the Sombra, because the Sombra also becomes a distraction tool. But actually, Enigmas weren't running anything that were at all, let alone countering the Widow, but even paying attention to her. And especially, we've seen how talented Evade is and how skilled he is, and you can't let someone like that just have not only free charge, but getting free damage and these really, really important kills onto your team members.
Yeah, I was very surprised to see that they didn't even commit Magnalinks into just harassing Evade on the Widow. Would have at least been... I realise it takes away slightly from the triple tank, triple support approach that you're going for, but 20, 25 player, 29 player kill streak, something like that.
I mean, but that's the thing. That's the whole thing with running a Diva is sometimes we see, especially if you see a Pharah being played into a 3-3 composition, it's often down to the Diva who has to go and deal with it because she's the only one who has that kind of mobility. And so you are right, maybe it takes away from the 3-3 and the Diva isn't necessarily right next to the Reinhardt, but personally I'd argue it's more important that the Brig's next to the Reinhardt, and that it's the Diva's job to be peeling, so the Diva does have to move back on the supports anyway, and that does sometimes mean going forward and aggressing on the front line of the enemy team.
Yeah, but we've got a fight happening right now. Nice early charge takes out Zensetsu, and that is going to spring this fight wide open. Look at the focus from Redstones here. Straight in, over the top. That was a good attempt at an environmental kill there. It's 83% of the way to an ultimate. How the heck did they find Delstan in the middle of that fight? Redstone's kind of looking like they don't need the rest of their team in this fight.
I shouldn't laugh, but I'm pretty sure that first charge that he got there on Zenzetsu was because Zenzetsu jumped in front of him, which is not fun. But
hear that cry of Mr. President, no! Zenzetsu leapt in front of their Diva. Look how aggressive they're being, though. They're already at this high ground choke. They've got the shatter. this could be disastrous here unless Enigmas are really, really strong on
This
the
is the
defense.
thing. I mean, I guess Enigmas are going to be trying to use this Halt, which they have just used, so now it's on cooldown. But to try and bring Invincibles down, but they're not defending up in this narrow choke point. So Invincibles just have kind of a free way to like route onto the point.
Yeah, but I think Enigma's finally learning a couple of lessons that Invincibles trapping Redstone behind that wall.
You say that.
Yeah, Delstan again more or less uncontested just because of the nature of the Invincibles composition here. No one there to contest, and Delstan with a quick 3 follow-up from Zensetsu with a kill onto Hikari means that they have successfully defended. They've got 6.5 minutes left to go though, so whether they can do that, it's a long time.
But this could be something that we actually see Enigmas trying to like finally finding their groove in, and if Delstan can bring out or achieve that barrage, especially if he has the damage boost from the Mercy, that if Invincibles do make the same rotation onto the point as they did before, then it would be really easy for him to land that barrage, especially as oh, actually, no, never mind. I was going to say they're not running a Diva, but Invincibles totally are running a Diva. So you need to be careful of the defense matrix. But actually, he looks like he's going to be doing a little bit of a flank. He doesn't yet have the barrage, but he's probably also going to provide some intel for his team.
Yeah, but I like the idea of the Sombra Farah hybrid. That's a nice wall, managing to force them all into that space. D-Bomb not able to find anything, but does successfully get the D-Mech. Still all to play for in this fight. This barrage needs to be big and needs to be quick if it's going to come in and stop the roll, because that is 2 down for Enigmas. They are down in this fight. But actually, the pick from Magna here on the may help just pick apart this sort of slow, heavy rolling comp that they've got. But barrage comes in. There it goes. Gets the damage boost from the supercharger as well. And Invincibles actually looking like they're going to get forced off this point.
Yeah, and the defense matrix was just a little bit too late there to save their main tank. So, as you say, they are going to back out, but they kind of don't need to be hyper investing into these fights because they do have 5 minutes left on the clock. They have ultimates on the board, and there's just no point in wasting them into a fight where they can just kind of come back again later because they have that time. They just need to obviously be making sure that as they do come back again later, they're actually taking some points. But
I just want to say, was looking on screen, it's a shame they didn't commit to it. I like this positioning for Magna, looking just to drop that wall in behind a couple of people, but of course they're not coming from that main axis there. Oh, that's a nice... did that get eaten? I didn't see that. No, it looked like it almost got eaten. The Earth Shatter coming out, manages to get 2 Redstones and evade, take out 2 of the DPS lineup, still 1 left. Delstan looking pretty much uncontested there, grabbed on Surgeon over the top, but Delstan does take out Hidari. There's no Annas left on the field, but the main tank, Mighty Cod, going down. That's unfortunate. You get taken out by your own barrage is never a good look, Delstan. Atcha 6 secures the final kill there onto the 129. Nothing coming out of that Death Blossom either. We've got May on point, just trying to set up the stall, but of course it does mean that all the focus is going to go onto the Ana instead of the May, and of course losing that Ana is pretty disastrous. Not able, Diva Bomb coming out may be enough just to help square them off the point, but they've yet to cap a single. Well, they've got, what, 20% on this point there. They're going to start finally capturing. There we go, point number 1. Team kill bell has been rung. It's not going to looking good for Enigmas. Yeah,
and so Invincibles do manage to take it, which means they have taken the series, but of course there still will be another map upcoming. But I think Invincibles was just sort of like, when the Blizzard came out, they were like, well, that tickled. And they just came out nonetheless. And I have to say, I'm really impressed with the Redstones, especially his performance on this map. He's been getting such value out of his Earth Shatters. And look at this, going straight into that Graviton and basically bringing down the entire team. Of course, there are just so many assists on there that pretty much you can kind of just attribute that to pretty much everyone on the team.
Yeah, I think you've got to feel a bit bad if you're Aethon there, because Aethon's name in that kill list was pretty prominent, and just because of all the additional hammer damage, it went straight to the Redstones.
Still goes to him, and but that's the thing, is that they're actually, you mentioned it earlier, but they're playing very aggressively, and they're just sort of going straight forward, which isn't something that we've seen that much come out of Enigmas. In fact, when they were constantly trying to make that same rotation up through that top right hand bit, which is very common, that's what we most often see on this map, but they were getting caught out, and they were just getting stalled in that point. And it's like, okay, you got a speed boost and you got to just go through and jump down on this point. You got to force the enemy team to position around you, and they just weren't.
So I feel like that plays in a little bit to what you were saying earlier about just the coordination in the team. You know, it's not just target coordination of like, let's all collapse on this character. It's let's all move together as a unit, because
Yeah.
that's how these lineups work. You know,
Yeah.
it's going as a unit, collapse on a target, get the next one, get the next one. If you are too strung out, then you can't do that.
I feel like the way that they're playing as a team suggests to me that they would feel a lot more comfortable playing a kind of flanky sort of thing, which I think is why they found that for at least a little while anyway, their defense was working for them a little bit, where they brought the Pharah around the side and actually was flanking the team, and so they didn't need to worry about all being very close together, and it wasn't as if, because when you do those flanking things maneuvers, your responsibility is making sure you're doing what you need to be doing. Whereas if you're playing a composition or playing against the composition or whatever, having to play a playstyle where you have to be worrying about what the rest of your team are doing and you can't afford to do that, it's not just your responsibility that you're doing what you have to. And even going by things that we saw from them, I mentioned how they were all kind of separated on Route 66. It just suggests to me that they're not listening to what each other are doing. They don't want to be.
I'd love to know. Firstly, obviously, you have these pre-formed teams. Whether or not people are scrimming just at Belong arenas, or if they're making the time to scrim together at home on their own PCs, and if what we're seeing here is just a difference in the amount of practice that we're getting from these two teams.
Well, yeah, and that was something that we discussed earlier, is the fact that, of course, we don't know what these people's personal lives are like, and maybe they work crazy jobs where they have like insane hours and they do something cool like you do, or maybe they're like me and I just play video games.
Yeah, there's a definite spectrum of can spend all time playing computer games, would like to spend all the time playing computer games.
This person is an MP, and can you imagine if there were an MP on this team?
I'd love
and it's
that.
like, yeah, I'm not voting for them because they suck at goats.
That guy's a Winston one trick. I'm not voting for him.
But I would like, as we go into Eichenwald, again, I think I said this before, but see Enigmas try and play to their strengths, and judging by what happened in Hanamura, I suspect that playing to their strengths, in inverted commas, is being able to play on heroes where they don't have to constantly keep tabs of what everybody else is doing. But they also, and I think this is a really big thing, is the fact that they don't have one definite main tank, whereas the Redstones on the side of Invincibles clearly knows exactly what he's doing. He's proven himself to be a very proficient both Orisa and Reinhardt player. We haven't really seen that much of his Winston so far. Going against that in these sort of compositions where your main tank's your leader, and if he dies, you're sort of done for, that is a really big disadvantage.
Yeah, that's pretty big. I don't want to talk too much about what we're seeing on offense when you consider that people often change just to spite the casters.
Debated.
Yeah, but the Redstones on the Reinhardt against the Mighty Cod on the Orisa. Typical counter for Orisa. WM1, just walk past her shield, take her out.
And that's the thing, is like Invincibles have proven they can be aggressive.
Yeah.
And if the Mighty Cod's Orisa were better than the main tank that Invincibles are running, then they would have won Ilias.
Yeah, absolutely. But look at this aggression, straight in with the rotation around the clock tower. That has enabled them to get a pick onto Hikari, so I suspect this is going to turn into a dry push of the Redstone just getting in, building up that Earth Shatter, focusing the Diva there, looking to try and get an early D-Mech. Maybe they can just buy enough time. No, it's not going to be enough because they've also lost Chalasi there. So actually, yeah, he definitely wasn't building up his ultimate charge anywhere near as fast as he has been in previous maps either, and especially seeing Delstan again showcasing that same kind of playstyle that we saw him actually making work very well on Hanamura, where he flanks around and comes from behind. And I think Invincibles need to be a little bit more aware for that and know that they can't just make a dry push just because they've lost one person, especially not when it's someone like your main support. Yeah, but this is a slightly better rotation this time. They didn't get caught out by the Hulk from the Mighty Cod, which means they are now in onto the team fight with everybody in and ready to go. That's a big sleep, though. Doesn't manage to take out the Arista because of the Fortify. We've got a really early Transcendence. DMC on the Zenyatta getting in there. Unfortunately, doesn't allow them to keep enough of the team alive to secure the team fight, and Invincibles looking like they may start rolling this one. Mighty Cod with very little health goes down. Look at that heroic charge, stuffing that Demon Bomb into the building, and Chalasi able just to get in there and help cleanup. Just the D.Va left on the point. Not a lot you can do in that situation.
I think when the 129 and both the Mighty Cod as well went down, we saw the self-destruct come out as a sort of, okay, I want to stall this out, because it gives, you have to remember there's a lot of time bank play here, and seeing how the Invincibles have done so far is they've been able to get themselves really large time banks. But I was really impressed with that charge. I'm just really impressed with the Redstone's game sense, all in all.
Yeah, it's really been very impressive. And Evade here showing, again, another hero that they're really, really skilled on. Already got this bob. In fact, both bobs ready to go. We could see dueling
double
bobs.
Bob, let's
double
go.
Double bob, everybody. No, sadly, it's not going to happen. We just have the single bob. It's still good. It's still good to see. DeemSea actually taking out Evade there. That might be why we didn't see the bob committed. Busy dueling the Zenyatta. Yeah, it does look a little bit like Enigmas are going to push Invincibles back, but a couple of key ultimates online for Invincibles in this next fight, and we don't have any defensive ult for Enigmas. Delstan, though, with a huge barrage, taking out 2. I always think any barrage you survive is a good barrage. Getting 2 is even better.
I actually like that Enigmas seem to be working really well, kind of using these CC abilities almost. We saw Delstan, he used his Concussive Blast really well, but I actually really like the Zenzetsu tried to use his Coach Gun to push the Redstones in the way of the Bob. We frequently use the Coach Gun seen to actually move the Ashe herself rather than the enemy, and I actually really quite like that.
Yeah, but I like that. That was just key. Classic Zarya, I have an ultimate, I intend to use it, positioning, just walking right past that barrier, but it's not going to be enough. Zenzetsu and Delstan securing a really good defensive hold for Enigmas. I can't imagine Invincible is going to want to push into this. D.Va Bomb coming out the self-destruction into the fight, doesn't get anything, but look at that. Evade jumping in right onto the head of Delstan, taking them out. Enigma's still looking pretty strong. Oh, there's another Bob with Bob in the fight, and an Earth Shatter coming in, securing 2 or 3 into that. Unfortunately, they're not really looking like they're in a position to capitalize on it. Magna Link's going down, didn't quite catch what happened there, but nobody attributed that fight. Looked like a self-destruct. And yeah, 129 just waved
gracefully
goodbye.
floating.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure what that halt was at the end there, especially when the Mighty Cod just kind of just halted a number of the Invincibles just into the same place they were already in. But there's a massive pit right next to you. Use it.
Oh,
Bye,
speaking
Bob.
of massive
Oh, Bob.
pit, Bob, no, come back, Bob. Redstones gets 2 and a third. Schlessie following up there and Evade. Just everybody on this, nobody on this team wants to be outshone by anybody else on this team. They're all really just getting involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Hikari, he's going to have that Nano ready to go for the next fight, which means that any one of these really powerful members of this team could become even more super, super powerful. We have DeemSea also have the Transcendence, so that means that they're going to have that protection. But of course, you might see Invincibles try and bait out that Transcendence, and so then they can use that as a cue for their own aggression.
Yeah, Delstan will swap on the Junkrat. Could be big here with the closed spaces. Tyre comes in, does get Evade. Only one from the Tyre, maybe not the most valuable Tyre in the world. Redstone's getting right out of dodge, getting out of trouble.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, you know, with Evade getting caught out in that, actually Ashe, of course, does have the ability to be mobile, but not far away enough that can avoid a Riptire. And providing that burst damage, it really does put you in a bad position. Although, I'm a little bit surprised that he kind of opted to hide behind the pillar as if Delstan would just forget he was there instead of actually trying to shoot down the Riptire. But it does mean Invincibles can make this next push altogether.
Yeah, and it's going to be an aggressive one because they've got this Earth Shatter online, and we've got a Bob just to try and force a bit of positioning. Gets instantly slept. No power naps for you, Bob. Oh, and Zenzetsu sends Bob right back to wherever the heck it is that Bob spawns from. And Enigma's finally looking like they've got some gas in the tank here. They have forced out the Transcendence. Not entirely sure what forced that, but that's going to be big in dictating what happens in the next fight.
And we saw the Mighty Cod actually also, he received the Nano Boost off of the 129 and then immediately gets stunned down onto the ground. And since the Nano Boost is on a brief cooldown, it doesn't last forever. Those milliseconds can be vital, but they have actually managed to maintain this defense. And so with just over 2 minutes on the clock, the Invincibles are going to be coming in, but they do have more ultimates on the board.
D.Va Bomb coming in, not able to find anything. Too much support, too much. Oh, look at that! Delstan finds 8th on during the high noon. Oh, that's got to be unfortunate. That's going to be it's the last thing you want to see if you're ulting.
Oh, that was really surprising because for a second there I thought that Delstan actually got the kill onto Evade there using his mine, but it actually looked like the 129 actually managed to get it, but given that he just used the dash, which obviously you get this dash reset, and in a really kind of confined area like this, that can be super useful if you're playing the Genji to move on to your next target. That actually probably put a massive spanner in the works for Invincibles there.
Yeah, I think what we're looking for was they're trying to work towards evade. Ooh, it's a big pin, but of course with the sound barrier on, that's unfortunate. Redstone's just getting every CC in the game thrown at him, and Delstan is actually proving a monster on this Junkrat, so involved in this defense.
And this isn't actually the first time that we've seen Delstan play the Junkrat today, and it's interesting having seen him switch between roles. He is one of the people that we did mention that has that, but he's building these Riptires up so super fast, and is, as you say, being such a key part of why this defense is going so well. And with under a minute left for Invincibles, they actually don't have the time to mess around, and they've really got to try and find their way past this next Riptire and not have a key member of the team if they hope to continue to push the payload.
Yeah, but we're looking at it. We've got Evade with the Dragon Strike. We've got the Graviton Surge. We're looking for that combo, but here comes the Riptire. Let's follow it all the way around the houses into the back line. Finds Hikari, but that does mean it's no longer on the cards for this next team fight. But we've only got 20 seconds left to go. If we're going to see Ultimates committed to the fight, it's got to be now. Graviton Surge. Here comes the Dragon Blade. We're going to wait for that. In fact, the Dragon Blade not even committed to the fight. Not entirely sure what's happening there. Maybe just waiting for the Transcendence to go. Earth Shatter comes in, immediately taken out there with a Fire Strike from Mighty Cod, and Enigmas might finally have it here. They've got no time left. We're into overtime. Yeah, and very little presence left on point for Enigmas. Just the D.Va. Delstan in the back, looking to try and just do even more work with this Junkrat pick. So here we go. Finally got that Dragon Blade from Evade straight onto the tank though. That's a lot of strikes going in just to try to demate the D.Va, and immediately taken out by Delstan. Zensetsu pops Bob, and Bob gets 2 for Bob's scorecard. 129 secures the final kill, and Enigmas finally manage a hold.
Managed to do a really good hold there, and that means Invincibles have got their work cut out as they need to do their own defense, and of course they have already won the series, but it seems like Enigmas are kind of doing something that we suspected may be it, and they've warmed up, and they've sort of...
Four maps for a warm-up is a big warm-up, guys.
They've found their footing a little bit now, it would appear, and I think it'll be interesting to see if they do something similar on the attack, because right now it's looking like, especially if the last 2 maps are anything to go by, their defenses are a little bit better because they have a team coming at them. They kind of have their anchor points and they're able to move around that, whereas on an attack you can't be based around that more static configuration, and you actually have to be moving forward, which is something that they actually haven't been doing quite as well. So that will be really interesting, but you know, Delstan, yeah, his Riptires, he was building them up like crazy, just spamming all that damage into this this sort of choke point as Invincibles entered into the next point of the map, and just being able to consistently pick off the supports.
I'm honestly surprised that we're not actually going to see Delstan on the Junkrat. I realise it's not the most common thing to see on attack here, but when you have so much success, surely you've got to be just in the mindset to try and replicate as much as you can on that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead with maybe not on on the attack, but it would be really interesting to see if his Ashe does get enough value. He should probably be maybe going for the head of the Genji there, but of course with that deflect to kind of go against him, it could be a bit of an issue. But that said, it's not an automatic fire, so you know, if you shoot once and it gets deflected, you have the time to stop.
Yeah.
And that's something that should be taken into account.
Yeah, but I absolutely would not want to be going up against Evade's Genji, but Zensetsu.
Not as Athan.
Certainly not as Athan. Deemsea with a nice pick there, but Mighty Cod going down. In fact, both main tanks out of the fight now, so this is still wide open for everybody. A huge sleep onto Zensetsu. Doesn't quite get out of that alive. Delstan, do you know what? Doesn't need the Junkrat, doing some really, really good work on this Ashe as well. And this was as good an attack as we saw from Invincibles on their round.
Yeah, taken very, very quickly, and I think Invincibles, they're just kind of trying things, and as we've kind of pointed out before, Evade, obviously his Genji is very good, and he's managed to get the value, but Athan, you know, he's not really doing quite as well. He's only just hit 30% on his ult charge, whereas the rest of his team are much further ahead than him. I mean, look at the 129, he's just about to get 100 already, so I'm not sure how good the McCree pick is. I mean, he's got to prove himself by managing to stop him.
Ooh, a nice deflect there. Evade taking out DMC. Invincibles have come back and they're actually right at spawn, so we need to be careful here. We may end up in spawn camp territory if we're not careful.
Yeah, maybe. And this is the thing, in a number of maps, as you go into these sort of like, I like to call them these car wash zones, where it's a choke point, but it's sort of for an extended distance. It means that's the ultimate point at which a team can pump ultimates in, for example, a Graviton or a self-destruct, because it's such a confined area.
I think we've got to watch out for this nano-boosted Genji Blade. Oh, there we go. Zensetsu with the nano-boosted Genji Blade does get stunned almost immediately. The Mighty Cod able to follow up a little bit there, but Zensetsu falling to the melee kill. In fact, both Genjis taken up by a punch to the face. It's not the way you want to go as everyone's favourite cyborg ninja. Invincibles looking like they're having to give up a little bit of space here in order to deal with some of the aggression from Enigma's. Enigma's coming around the corner. Aethon, we've got to watch Aethon here, because coming round the corner with that high noon, if they can get in the right place, that could be absolutely huge. No barrier left for Redstones, but an Earth Shatter online. They've just got to time this right in between shoot. There we go. Finds the Mighty Cod, but not before Mighty Cod takes down Atcha. And there we go. I talked about Aethon using that high noon. Only gets one out of it, but that's the team kill bell.
Yeah, Invincibles managed to hold that, and I was thinking kind of there when Atcha got slept, I was thinking, oh come on, the Redstones, move forward, shield him, but actually he used that as bait to encourage Enigmas to move forward and try and get that kill on him, and that's where he used the massive Earth Shatter, and I thought actually this is why they're the players and I'm not, because
those who can play, those who can't color cast.
Why are you gonna do me like this? But it's true, and I was actually pretty impressed with that.
Yeah, it's got to feel pretty bad being used as sleeping bait. But here
so it's got to feel pretty bad being you.
It does feel pretty bad being me, I'm not going to lie. That's lots of ults in the fight. We've got another bomb, but he gets slept and he gets discorded and he just gets absolutely piled on, and he doesn't last all that long in the fight. But in the meantime, DC taking out Evade.
Oh, that was a massive mistake.
Unfortunate. Mighty Cod right into the pit. Aethon's got to hold this point. No, we do have both supports left online for Invincibles, holding the line. DMC though, DMC getting two. It's pretty big. Needs to just take out Hikari, and that's the point all theirs. They've got to back out and get out the way though.
Yeah, I'd back out about him because he's just going to feed ult charge otherwise. But I have to say, that charge made me laugh so much because of course the Bob was already down. So actually the Redstones didn't really need to do that. He could have easily been booped, but of course they're not. Enigmas aren't running a Lucio to get rid of him, so seeing the Mighty Cod going for that and just falling down the pit, it's just, you just gain nothing.
But that's absolutely huge. The presence there of Evade forces out DMC's Transcendence. That means it's not online for when he actually pops the Dragon Blade. Speaking of which, out comes the Dragon Blade. It gets the Nano as well, but Aethon takes away all the thunder from that combination and gets 3 with the high noon. Follow up from Atcha and Hikari. 5-player kill streak for Aethon. What a play.
Aethon completely avenging the Redstones there. One thing that you see with Reinhardt's is if they make it a charge at each other at the same time, then they're both going to go down and get stunned, and that's what we saw. But the Mighty Cod actually had the Nano on him, so he had the advantage of surviving through that and being able to pump in that power with his hammer when they both got up, and so obviously that caused the Redstones to fall. But which, you know, you'd usually think, okay, the main tank's down, they're probably going to lose the fight. The Mighty Cod, he is the Mighty Cod, you know, he wins that, and then Aethon was just like, no, I'm going to use my Deadeye and it's actually going to get kills.
Yeah, it's good. It's a wonderful setup. So nice that we've got a different rotation coming in from Enigmas. They've not just gone up through choke, but they've not got any ultimates aligned, and having just lost Magna puts them in a really, really bad position. You don't want to be trapped up here when you are down in the team fight, especially when we've got Transcendence and an Earth Shatter, and very close to getting another Blade for Evade. So this is not a good position to be in. That was almost the Mighty Cod getting booped into the pit there, but not quite. I'm amazed that they're still out here taking damage, frankly.
Yeah, and Evade there, we saw specifically use the poke damage to try and build up the Blade, and look, he just, oh baby, a triple. He actually managed to get them.
Evade does not want to give you space to talk about what happened because he wants to give you something new to happen. Huge Dragon Blade from Evade. Magna Lynx taking a dive to help with the reset.
Yeah, and that's such a good example of Evade actually using, Enigma were trying to use this high ground to have the high ground advantage, and Evade actually using that against them. He can climb the walls, get the poke damage, build up the rest of his Dragon Blade, and because Enigmas didn't really do much to prevent him from getting that damage, they actually fell to the Dragon Blade that they basically gave him.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate position to be in, especially if you are Enigmas coming into Invincibles with so many ultimates online, and especially that defensive ult is going to nullify the fact that we've got DMC with the, or nearly got a couple of ults online, but we've got 23 seconds left on the clock. Look at that Graviton sticking them right to the top. This is final fight territory. Look at this, the High Noon coming in, zeroing in on that 1000 HP. Bob's still up, Earthshatter as well. Bob is having the worst time in the world. The Redstones takes out Delstan. And this seems to be a big Dragon Blade. Evade needs to take out the Mighty Cod, and there's just the Mighty Cod left, and that's going to be it. 1 second left on the clock. Evade drags out another Dragon Blade. That deadly butter knife secures the fight for Invincibles. Invincibles taking this 4-0.
And the big mistake that Zenzetsu made there was actually starting his Dragon Blade when he was way too far away from the team, because he got that first dash in. He still had to sort of like hop along, and his next target he was going for had the Zarya bubble on them, and it's just really not what you want to be. And then of course Evade's just like, okay, I'm going to actually show you how it's supposed to be.
But we are going to see this. He gets the flash kill onto Delstan. We're going to see the Shatter coming out shortly. Aethon on the back here takes out any possible target for Evade to get that Dragon Blade onto.
Yeah, no, that was really great. And I think also the thing with Enigmas on that last map is because they managed to actually hold Invincibles, they must have kind of been like, oh, this is our chance. And Invincibles were just able to be like, nah.
Yeah, it did look like the strength of that initial attacking round coming in from Enigmas looked like they finally got the steam they need to do it, and then just sort of petered out towards the end. They're just because Invincibles are so strong and so good at working together as a unit.
Yeah, and I think also them putting that Harmony Orb on the Bob at the end there is like, okay, sure, you're going to keep the Bob alive. And I mean, Bob already has 1200 HP.
Yeah.
That's a lot of HP.
That's a lot of extra character on the field.
It also means that someone on your team can't receive that Harmony Orb, and which gives you the 30% healing boost. And we saw the Redstones go in and get that Rhine Charge, and a Rhine Charge will deal 300 damage. And it's just, you could have been protecting a member of your team. Yeah. It's like, I know we're sat here like, okay, justice for Bob, let's start the charity now. But Bob ultimately is there to kind of zone, at least in that instance he was, and it didn't work, and you're probably better off trying to protect your team.
Yeah, probably. But that is, of course, that's 4-0 to Invincibles. Bad luck to Enigmas. Hopefully we'll see more of you in the upcoming games. And if you're watching this at home and thinking, man, that looks like a lot of fun, there's a really easy way to get involved. Just find your local Belong Arena site and come along and register your interest for Overwatch, and I'm sure there'll be trials, or maybe they'll draw your name out of a hat to get onto the team. But it is a lot of fun. I'd encourage you all to get involved. But that's going to be it from the first map from myself and Gio. We're going to take a short break, and we're coming back with the second of tonight's maps shortly.
Never to know I'm feeling some type of way. I wish I heard you say that maybe what I'm feeling isn't real, and the ceiling is falling as my voice is calling for that feeling again. Watch me try to understand, but I can't possibly know. You make me feel alive. You make my lungs feel right. Gentle whispers in the past. I'll be
Hello, welcome back. This is going to be game number 2 of this evening's Arena Clash Spring Season. I'm still Phil, and with me still Gio. We're coming straight in to map number 2 of Claymore versus Nighthawks.
Yeah, and we already know that Claymores did take the first map. Unfortunately, we won't be able to see that one, but isn't that much of a surprise, Phil?
No, not really. If you look at the comparative SR of the two teams, it's understandable that the Claymores got the W on that map.
Yeah, and it's also Claymores, kind of like we mentioned in the last series, but Claymores did actually get to the playoffs of last season, and they were knocked out by Pirates, so, you know, rip in pieces.
Rip in pieces of 8.
Shut up.
I'm sorry, guys. I'll limit the puns going in from now on. Having heard the reaction both from my co-caster and from our producer, telling me the puns are terrible, I'll back off.
But also, what we know about Nighthawks is actually this is basically an entirely new roster. Extreme Chaos is actually the only player remaining from the roster who's previously been on it. Everybody else came up from the underground team up into this championship team.
So Extreme Chaos is more or less what we're expecting to see from this match going forwards, do we think?
I thought you said no puns.
It wasn't a pun. That was an honest to God joke.
Okay. Alright, sure. Yeah, well, Extreme Chaos is probably, nonetheless, the person around which the rest of the team are going to be revolving. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out from them, especially as they are going to be starting here with the defense. And it looks like they're actually going to be holding a little bit further forward than we saw from the two teams in our last series who like to sit on big L's, although they're not quite going for the spawn camping method.
No, classic under the sign, under the bridge hold here. Claymores, interestingly. No, I started talking about the fact they look like they're going to be running a quad DPS, and they've swapped out to make me look stupid.
Yeah, well, Claymores, they do like their 3-3 composition, so it's no surprise to see them coming out on that. And given the skill of this team, it would not be surprising if they do find a way to run over this Soldier Reaper that's being run by Nighthawks.
Yeah, it was a brave and valiant effort there from Dranda, looking to try and get a sneaky 1 or 2 picks with those Hellfire shotguns, but chased right the way out by the tank lineup from Claymores, opting really weirdly to have the main team fight happen in this small tunnel. And that's going to be the first kill, and Dranda going down, Red Tiger, but we're equalised actually. No, 2 kills, Claymore starting to clean up, 3 on board for Claymores, and they are going to push the remaining Nighthawks right the way back.
Yeah, they're actually starting to get some distance on the payload now, but I was quite impressed with actually the use of the nade there on Nighthawks as the team started to go aggressive, which is obviously kind of scary if you're going against the team who has clearly proven themselves to be very, very high skill when you maybe didn't quite do so well in the last season. You know, they clearly have that on them, and being able to use the anti-nade and the nade to help them out through that fight.
That's a really quick Revaton Surge, but unfortunately dying more or less as it's committed, and unfortunately not doing enough to get people off the payload. They have capped. It's a shame, almost a waste of that ultimate.
A little bit. There wasn't really any follow-up, and I also have to question kind of JDM Tom remaining on the Soldier here, because his ultimate charge is lagging so far behind the rest of the teams that I'm not really sure exactly what value he's getting, and Soldier can't really provide a huge counter to anybody in these 3-3 compositions. So I would, you know, if he insists on playing the DPS, we know JDM Tom, he pretty much just plays DPS, whereas the rest of the team, they like to flex a little bit. Maybe see him on something like a Farah, who can kind of actually get behind those big shields.
Yeah, in fact, it's strange to be lapped, to be out charged by a Zarya player, but that's a big bomb from Echoic, takes out Extreme Chaos, and Elysium Zebra Tiger taking down Daxi means that there is nobody standing in the way of this payload. It's going to be, unfortunately, not enough of an ultimate there from Dranda to do anything to halt the payload progress.
Yeah, I think that the attempt there was he was trying to kind of slank around, but the death wasn't really just kind of got caught in the door there, and not only that, his nearest target also had the projected barrier on them, so it just really didn't get that much. I'd like to see a few swap-ups come out from the Nighthawks here, because Claymores are just going to start having this momentum and snowballing through, especially with the number of ultimates they have.
Yeah, we've had the Nano Boost come out, we've got the Nano Boosted Reinhardt, but of course it came in quite a long way from the enemy team, and and just the CC ability and the presence of mind from ZZ Red Tiger meant that almost nothing came of that invested ultimate. Ben and Z Red Tiger taking down 2 from Nighthawks. You've had the Transcendence come into the fight, only protecting 3 other people. It's not looking good for Nighthawks.
Yeah, being able to stun a Reinhardt like that when he's got that nano boost on him, which is when you'd want him to be the most aggressive, is going to be really advantageous for the Claymores there, because it pushes back Nighthawks and kind of stops them from being able to go through with what they saw as their win condition.
Yeah, JDM Tom finally has ultimate, but he is getting heavily pressured by D.Va on the side of Claymores. It's going to be very difficult. D.Va there to catch most of that ultimate, zoning out the soldier, meaning not a lot of value out of that. A huge Earth Shatter. The Earth Shatter itself taking out 2, and then it's just clean up Lazaran, Koic and Ben. This tank lineup really flexing its muscles.
This just seems to be kind of effortless for Claymores right now. You know, as soon as the tag visor came out, not only was Tom really in the kind of, he didn't really have that many people in view. He said, "I got you in my sights," but like who? You know, he had the D.Va. They immediately then ran their sound barrier, so you know there was no way that he was gonna get all that much damage. And then the D.Va could kind of eat some of it with a defense matrix, but she also had the ability to just sort of run him down and, well, I would say body block, but blocking who?
But body blocking for all of that delicate scenery behind them. We didn't want that to take any damage. So it's unfortunate. It took JDM Tom most of the map to get that attack visor, and then unfortunately all just spent into the face of a D.Va. I'd like to see him maybe run something a little more synergistic with his team coming out on their attack run.
Yeah, and it could be that well, not us personally, I don't think we'll hear any comms, but like Extreme Chaos maybe giving a little bit of advice in his ear about what to run. It's looking like maybe for their attack we might come out with this double projectile, which I'm quite a fan of, especially if Dranda on the Hanzo can actually get some headshots, because if you can get off one vital member of Claymores such as the Zenyatta, who I'd imagine is probably going to be pretty well shielded, but you got to look for those openings, and if you can get down that one member, the GOAT's composition can be shut down, because it's just not going to run all that well when you only have 5 members.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is going to hinge on whether or not Nighthawks can use the varying angles of attack from Drando, from JDM Tom to actually get in and start providing a little bit of pressure and force Claymores away from the point.
Yeah, and I'm really interested with Extreme Chaos' pick of the Roadhog, because it looks to me like he's chosen it specifically because he wants to be able to be more self-sustaining and not have to rely on his support line as much, and maybe have a little bit more of a carry potential, perhaps, even more so than the value he might get out of a hook.
Yeah, possibly. We saw him flanking through the small tunnel there, looking to get a target. May have backed off to come and help support the team a little bit. There we go. Extreme Chaos takes heart out of the fight. Unfortunately, Daxi and Aljamic falling so quickly after means this is going to be a really aborted tank for Nighthawks, despite the good work of Extreme Chaos on that Roadhog getting the early pick.
Well, they got in that Resurrect there, and they have the spawn advantage, so it could be that they can actually come out into this fight before it's even over.
Yeah, but look at this. The Resurrect basically meant that Daxi just got brought alive to die again, so it's really just prolonging the stagger.
Yeah, and the res does have a very long cooldown. If I remember correctly, it's a 30-second cooldown, so that means that Roma's going to have to wait a little while until he has that available to him again.
Yeah, it feels like what we're seeing here is really the effect of the low SR of Nighthawks coming into effect. But Dranda, though, getting a cheeky couple, gets the Dragon, manages to force Lazaran off to the side. This is the opening they needed, because there's no D.Va mech, and yeah, this could be it, but unfortunately Dranda falling straight down to Ben. JDM Tom equalises. Extreme Chaos, we saw another really key pick there with this flank hog style that we also thought was dead and buried. They've just got to take out the main tank, and this is their fight. But Ben on such a high charge, that's got to get out the way. JDM Tom not able to get out of the way of the D.Va on Extreme Chaos falling as well. All that good work for nothing.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm really disappointed to see that JDM Tom, even when faced with a self-destruct there, he didn't even use his concussive blast to try and move himself out of the area of effect, and these are the kind of mistakes that you're going to see when you're running a much lower skill cap team than a higher one there. We saw Ben
Graviton Surge.
Graviton there?
Just,
was that
there we
a
go.
misclick?
Well, that's the payload. Well and truly Graviton Surge. Good work.
Yeah, I have to agree there, and I'm really hoping that JDM Tom actually manages to find some value out of this self-destruct. Don't do it too high, but also
there's
the
a shatter.
down.
We got the shatter, but it was so late on getting that barrage off, actually allowing the D.Va to get into their face, meaning no value from the barrage there. Whole Hog Pop takes out Ben. That's a lot of damage offline. Got to break the shield, then make Lazaret incredibly vulnerable. Secures the D-Mech as well. That's 2 tanks effectively down, but Heart on a real tear there. 2 with an assist onto Alicia JMC, meaning that Claymores are pushing right the way up to spawn, and Nighthawks don't have a lot in the tank to contest with.
Yeah, and Echoic was just able to build up so much ultimate charge as well from just swallowing up that entire not self-destruct, the barrage. I mean, a barrage provides 4,000 damage. That's a lot to eat up, and we saw what his self-destruct can do. So this is kind of the concerning thing, is Claymores are just building up these ultimates way faster than Nighthawks, but they don't even need them as much.
No, and another big shatter helps to go to Fedorian there, popping off related Lucio style, getting 2. Heart and Nicoke with the follow-up. We're going to hear the team kill bell, I think, if this Mercy goes down. There we go. Ring the bell, everybody.
And there is less than a minute left. We've got just about 40 seconds left to go. That Nighthawks have to kind of do this fight and get the payload moving to the next checkpoint. And the kind of concerning thing is they're not staying long enough on the payload.
Look at that! Echoic with the triple right out of spawn. There's another 10 seconds before they can make a proper push at this team fight. It's going to be so difficult, even with the 2 ultimates they have online. Now, a big Earth Shatter Dragon Strike combo could open up this fight, but it's got to be absolutely massive.
It could open up this fight, but last time we saw the Dragon Strike come out, it was so early and the team just couldn't move forward enough to kind of capitalize on that.
Ben, when did you even swap off the Zarya? Ben with the triple on the High Noon and the clear up 4 and 5. Wow, Ben really flexing those DPS muscles.
He's flexing well, but is he though, or is he just lifting a really low weight?
Well, I mean, let's not get too heavy into slagging off Nighthawks. It's unfortunate they are suffering really heavily from this SR disadvantage, and it's got to be pretty demoralizing, really.
You know, I think it's not even just kind of like the SR thing, but again, because it's a new team, they're still getting used to each other. They kind of gotta find each other's playstyles and also learn how to build each other up, and this is a really important thing about when you join a new team, and you have to kind of almost learn how to be coachable and how to take criticism both from yourself and your teammates. And so there are so many things that we've kind of pointed out that are sort of like the small details and the small things that that Nighthawks are sort of doing wrong, you know, like not using the concussive blast, like maybe using the Dragon Strike a little bit too early because you can't follow up on it, and those are things that can be tweaked fairly easily, and throughout the season I'm sure we'll see Nighthawks actually polishing up on these things and actually being able to give teams like Claymores a little bit more of a run for their money. But you know, as Claymores start to approach their own attack now,
yeah, it's it is unfortunate, but when you have so many things that are, you know, obvious to us as casters who get to watch this stuff a lot, it does mean that the amount of effort that you've got to put in to significantly improve is not that much. You know, that we can expect some real gains from Nighthawks through this season.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely true. It's all about kind of cleaning up those sort of smaller things, whereas Claymore is probably like the things they would have to clean up on. But
yeah, a little more advanced.
You know, we can't take away from them the fact that they did do such a solid hold on this point, and it was, you know, they were able to build up these ultimates very, very quickly and pretty much just use one to wipe out an entire team. And yeah, that is a massive sign of positioning errors coming out from Nighthawks. They weren't in the right place. They weren't using kind of, when I say the resources available to them, not only their own cooldowns and abilities, but also, you know, the map geometry. They weren't using the cover. They weren't coming up into the high grounds and things like that. So I'd like to see them maybe, as we go into Hanamura, trying to do that a little bit more and seeing a little bit of an improvement from that.
So I completely agree, but one of the things that I do like to see with the lower SR teams is that we don't see the sort of tried and true compositions. You know,
we see a little bit more spice.
We see a lot more spice. So you know, I can't think the last time I saw Reaper, Pharah, Hog on attack on Hanamura. This is great. This is new and interesting stuff. I'm looking forward to casting it. Claymores looking maybe a little more traditional.
Yeah, and I mean, I said it before, but it's definitely Claymores have solidified their kind of playstyle as really favoring Ghosts. They have a lot of practice on it. You know, this is a team that have played in other tournaments. They've played in things like the Newell and like the King of the North and gone very far in them, and so they've had this time to build up their identity and what they like to play and what they're good at, and have that synergy as well. So, yes, they are looking at the whole thing very far forward, actually.
Yeah. But I like this rotation from Nighthawks. They've avoided just going straight down, which is clearly what Claymores were expecting. Yeah. It's not a huge advantage, but I like this. Extreme Chaos looking just to divert a bit of attention, getting in behind. I actually thought they were going to go and contest point, but no.
No, they're just going for the Zenyatta.
Just going for the Zenyatta, which is good. I love this. Good presence of mind. Actually, look at this. 2-up. Dranda taking down Ben. Extreme Chaos taking out Heart means they are up in this fight. They can afford to push in and cap a bit of aggression. Roma brings Dranda back into the fight, so they are still even here. But they've really got to just signal the ring the press W bell, I guess. Let's call that one. Unfortunately, not quite there in terms of coordination. Claymore's looking to be holding off Daxi here from getting in. Ben swapping onto the Wrecking Ball, slightly spicy pick in this composition.
Well, the Wrecking Ball can, of course, use all those high areas for his grapple and come down and use the pile driver, and especially if there is any one hero who's kind of left on their own, a little bit isolated, it's very easy to target them, and you'll probably find that on a team which doesn't have the same level of coordination, they can actually utilize that very well and capitalize on that.
Here comes a Diva Bomb, nothing out of it. Does look like taking a little bit of damage off of Daxi, but obviously popping that, taking a breather, not taking the full whack of damage there. Laser Zen taking out Dranda is, you know, I'm going to keep harping on this. You lose the main tank, you pretty much lose the fight unless you can equalize quickly enough. Claymores, look at this focus on chasing down Extreme Chaos right the way through that rotation.
I think the thing with Dranda there was that he was kind of just standing there holding up his shield while Laser Zen was going in with his hammer. It's like a shield's not really going to help you there, and I think this is the thing with Nighthawks. We need to see them be a bit more aggressive and assertive.
Yeah. I mean, just that little change in terms of just coordinated aggression would do so much for their performance here. But we are seeing Claymores chase Nighthawks right the way back to spawn. Ultimate's online for Nighthawks though, so the right combination here could be what they need to clear this defensive hold from Claymores.
Yeah, but the important thing is that they do follow it up. If we see Extreme Chaos using the Death Blossom, putting in the minefield there is cruel. It really blocks off that path. But if we do see the Death Blossom, we need to see the rest of the team following up on it.
How did Ben get the kill onto JDM Tom with a mine? JDM Tom, you should be right up in the sky.
You gotta be in the sky.
You have a jetpack.
Oh no, such a shame. But look, he does have the Death Blossom ready to go now, ready to come in. So we could actually see something come out from that.
Yeah, this is actually quite a nice combination here. We got the whole hog protected by the Transcendent. Extreme Chaos has taken Heart out of the fight, but 3 ultimates invested there to secure 1 kill, and Lasers then taking LGMC right back out of the fight. It's not going to be enough, especially when you've got enough space there for Ben to get in and start doing some kills with that grappling hook. So 1 minute left on the clock. Nighthawks spent everything they had in the bank there.
Yeah, not only did they use those 3 ultimates, but they used their support ultimates at the same time as well, which is just a really big rookie error. And then we saw the Mercy's positioning on the point. You want to be trying to kind of like have the view on the person on the point, but not necessarily be in the fray of the fight yourself, because you have very little to defend yourself with. So Claymores, of course, having the advantage in the fact that Laser Zen could really just put an Earth Shatter through this choke point and keep Nighthawks completely away, and they only have half a minute left for this push. So if they get blocked off now, it's going to be really bad news.
Yeah, that was big though actually. Daxi with a great hook onto a discorded Ben means that they don't have that mind, and it's a big shatter. Look at that, going straight in for the Zen. Has taken out Zen. That's 3 down for Claymores though. So Nighthawks looking in a really ropey position here with 10 seconds left on the clock.
They are, and they're going to have to speed in really quickly. We see that Rally being popped now to provide the armor, but it's looking like, they just don't really need to work too much.
Yeah, no, it's unfortunate. It was I did enjoy that last second kill there. Taking Ben out of the fight, it gave me a surge of spirit, thinking maybe they've got it, maybe they've cracked it, but it's just not enough, especially when you get so heavily shattered.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately for Nighthawks there, it does kind of come back to that they have to be capitalizing on the things that they do. And, in their first push, they did get a few kills onto the Claymores, but instead of moving forward to actually go onto the point, it gave Claymores the time to come back and return, or for the other members to catch them out in the choke point and bring them down, whereas you kind of have to take the fight to the point, and because then you have the opportunity to try and, get these ticks, and you can fight other members as they start to come onto the point, and when your team starts to come back, your spawn is so much closer, and they just didn't do that. They hung around in the choke point, and honestly, I feel like I repeat myself sometimes whenever I'm casting Hanamura, because this is the biggest mistake I see.
Yeah, and I think at the level of play that we're seeing from Nighthawks, you can sort of break down how to succeed in Overwatch into a series of checklists. And item one on that checklist is, if you are 2 up in the fight, WM1, win fight.
That is very true. You should never be in a position where you are the 6 in a 6 versus 5 and you're losing. That should never be happening.
Correct.
But, let's have a look at Claymore's defense here, because we are coming out with this triple DPS for Hanamura defense, which I did mention before, except we're running a Widow and McCree with the Pharah instead of an Ash Sombra, which I said that we do quite frequently see. But with the Mercy, you're going to have that damage boost and that constant stream of healing, so they're probably going to be very, very strong.
Yeah, and what we're going to see here, I think, is Laser Zen just booping straight onto the point, forcing Nighthawks to turn around and deal with the fact that there is somebody on the point contesting, and that's when the rest of Claymores are going to come in and smash down. In fact, Ben already with the kill there. Dranda, who should be invisible and keeping out of the way, unfortunately going down very early, and then quite Extreme Chaos equalizes it, taking Ben out in retaliation, but it's not looking good. Actually, no. Extreme Chaos, JDM Tom with those projectile heroes starting to do a lot of work. Echoic right in the middle of the choke, just taking their time and taking people out. Nighthawks have had to back all the way onto point even, just to try and buy some contest time. It's not looking good though. 2 online for 2 online with a hack coming in, and there we go. Podorian secures the kill onto JDM Tom. We are percentage points away, and that's it. Really, really quick cap time for Claymores, unfortunately.
You should never be a hacked tracer and lose out to a Sombra. That's not good, my dude. That's not good. And ultimately, yeah, they had to stay on the point, and I think that was the issue there as Nighthawks. They were trying so hard to stay on the point, and they weren't in the advantageous spot in this fight. And also,
distracted by the play of the game there. I thought it was just going to be a complete spin the whole time, but actually taking a break from the spin just to casually take out the Pharah. What a play of the game.
Oh man. But when we saw the Mercy on the side of Claymores there, getting that really keel resurrect onto Ben so that he could come back in all his hamster rodent glory, that did then mean that there were more members in the fight for them, and it was just very easy pickings for Claymores after that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. You got to think it's unfortunate if you are Nighthawks in this position, because how many maps can you play where you don't manage to get a tick, you don't manage to get much by capture progress? It's got to be very frustrating, and it's got to be very frustrating for Claymores having to play a team that they almost have to put no effort in to sort of brush off the point. And I'm genuinely not trying to BM people here, but it's just an artifact of the way these teams are put together, in that some teams are put together with a top 500 selection, some are not.
True, but in a tournament where you have these groups and it's really important about your map differential, it's actually probably really great for Claymores that they are looking like they're probably going to get a 4-0. Of course, we only know that they've got 3 maps so far, but actually, yes, while it may not be the most intellectually riveting experience for them, it is an easy kind of gain for those differentials, which could become really important as they start to move in towards playoffs. Let's not assume anything. But
far too early in the day for that.
You did also mention the fact that there is this kind of team mentality issue that can come in from Nighthawks, and it is really important that, especially playing a team game, like, you have to be able to maintain that PMA, and that includes to yourself, not just your teammates. You have to be able to kind of pick yourself back up, and that's one of the hardest things about losing in Overwatch.
Yeah, and I honestly think that's, if you have somebody on your team that is very good at rallying your team back together and saying
Brigitte, lol.
Brigitte. If you've got a really positively minded Brigitte,
Mickey.
Yeah, more people should be like Mickey. Easily my favourite player. But yeah, if you've got somebody on your team who is just really top notch at getting you all back into that positive mindset, then that can pay huge dividends. Interestingly, we've not had a pick from Extreme Chaos yet. There we go.
So there we go, coming out on the Zarya, and I'm actually really hoping that he'll be able to work well with Daxi and provide the projected barriers so that Daxi can be a little bit more aggressive. And we saw in the last map that he would kind of go up to Laser Zen, but he'd hold up his shield while Laser Zen was cleaving into him, and I want to see a little bit of that going back, because you can't just stand there and allow a Reinhardt to beat you up. And I'm hoping having that security of a more experienced player providing you with that 200 HP bubble that will actually encourage him to do that.
Yeah. Well, now would be the time to see it. We have seen the projected barrier come out. JDM Tom gets a nice early kill, sending Hart out of the fight. That means it's going to be very difficult for Claymores to push in this position, unless, of course, they can just keep in with all those defensive abilities, buying time for them to come back in. But Laser Zen takes out Daxi with a hell of a charge from across the map. This is wide open, particularly if you're Claymores, because no main tank spells huge problems if you're Nighthawks.
Yeah, and now we're, of course, seeing Echoic getting a little bit distracted from the rest of the fight as he tries to deal with the Zarya. Deals with the Farret in the sky.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate position for Extreme Chaos. An equally hard charge Zarya coming at you whilst you've got that 30% damage orb from the Zen on you is a terrible position to be in. Daxi falling down, unfortunately. It's a good effort from Roma, but it's not going to be enough. With a Diva on your tail, you are not going to get that res off.
I have to say, I haven't been all that impressed with Roma's attempts for Resurrects that we've seen so far, because we see them kind of come out at times where the fight's already lost, and as we said, that cooldown is on 30 seconds. It's not really the sort of thing that you can sort of waste away, and you need to be sure that you're doing them at really poignant times, and especially when there is an enemy Reinhardt, or a Diva, sorry, in that case, who's just going to come straight after you and kind of pummel you down. It really makes you have that cooldown not available for the next fight, and that's more likely where it's going to be more valuable to you.
Yeah, but thinking about how... Oh, that's a nice hammer down. Earthshatter does manage to take Laser Zen, but the sound barrier coming in right over the top means that there's not going to be a lot of vapor. Dranda gets a double with the Dragon there and the boost. Unfortunately, Echoic equalising that, meaning we are in 3-3 territory. Roma finally managing to succeed and bringing JDM Tom back into the fight. Extreme Chaos takes out his opposite number, but we've just got Echoic left here in face of the high charge Zarya. Daxi charging the map and actually looking like Nighthawks feeling pretty strong at the minute.
Yeah, Nighthawks may be feeling pretty strong, but Claymores are still moving the payload, and ultimately that's all that matters in situations like this. They may have gotten advantage in that fight, but have they actually managed to defend?
No, there's a huge positioning error from Extreme Chaos, wading right into the middle of that team fight without the rest of their team. Took a lot of damage, and the chase from Lasers then took them right out of the fight. And yeah, that's another fight down. This poor Roma Mercy stuck out once again. So for
It's running away.
trying their damnedest. But Dranda is doing a lot of good work here. They've kept alive for a long time. They've got a couple of good picks. They've got a really good... Oh, unfortunate Daxi. Your shield is not going to deflect the charging Reinhardt.
The thing is, staying alive for a really long time is not necessarily a sign of really good play, because as a team you have to understand when the best time to reset is, because, if they'd have reset, they would have been able to come out and actually have another contest before the payload reaches this next checkpoint, but now there isn't really any chance.
No, I don't know if you caught that then. We got a Graviton Surge from Ben right at the highest point of the tower, looking just to try and grab that pharmacy combo. Sadly, wasn't quite enough to do that. And look at this really early aggression from Claymores. Has seen Nighthawks completely staggered in this fight, taking 3 down, and they're pushing right up, keeping just a couple of people, in fact, I think just keeping Hart on the payload, whilst they push all the way up into spawn. Extreme Chaos do have some things to play with, but they've got to be big plays if they're going to come off.
Yeah, and Claymores are very close to having their rallies, so going into the next fight with that as the kind of initiator for it is something we're most likely to see.
Diva Bomb takes Daxi right out of the fight. Here comes that rally we were talking about. Ben takes out his opposite number, and this is just all red on the left-hand side of that kill feed. Nighthawk's not really getting a look in. It's a dragon. It's a big dragon. It comes right down the middle. Sound barrier helps keep everybody alive, allowing Laser Zen and Ben to take out the DPS line of Nighthawks. And there we go. Point C captured in a pretty quick time.
And that's the thing, is Claymores are just very good at managing their ultimates. Nighthawks, they brought out that Dragon Strike there, and the sound barrier was ready to go, and it just seems like everything that Nighthawks do when they think maybe they're a little bit on top, Claymores just have an answer for it. I mean, even that fight on the second broken point that we saw where actually Nighthawks managed to gain the advantage. They had the numbers advantage. It looked like they were actually going to win the fight and it was doing pretty well, but the Claymores were still moving the payload, and ultimately that's kind of what matters. We had, I think it was Hart who was still sitting on it while the rest of the team were able to funnel in from that. And it's about this kind of target prioritization that you need to be making. Like, it's all well and good to be dealing damage, but why are you dealing damage to that person?
Yeah, there's no point putting 500 damage into a tank that survives that 500 damage if you could more reliably been killing supports and DPS characters. You know, it's about target focus and target priority, and we're not seeing that.
Is something we've been seeing the Claymores do. I mean, always going for those support heroes. And actually, we see a little bit of a switch around in the support heroes for Nighthawks. I'm wondering if maybe AJ just doesn't play the Ana, because we saw Roma on the Mercy up until now. But actually, I'm liking... Well, I said it earlier, I like the Ana picks. We've actually got it on both sides. But I want to be really watching out for Hard, actually, because this guy, he used to be a DPS player. So to see Ana be played, you know, by an ex-hit scan DPS player, when
DPS player.
You know, a scoped Ana is a hit scan. When she's unscoped, she doesn't have the hit scan, but nonetheless, if you can aim, you're gonna be a good Ana.
Yeah, and you know, we've already seen the projectile aim coming in from Harvey. Absolutely fantastic. You know, a lot of time on the left-hand side of that kill feed, very little time on the right-hand side of the kill feed. JDM Tom playing really low to the ground here, backing out, hasn't really got a very good angle of attack, and Nighthawks getting just stalled out of this choke. Aggression from Laseran. Daxi gets a nice charge, maybe not who he wanted, and especially when he is right in the path of Laser Zen. So Daxi going right down, and that definitely favoured Claymores in that exchange.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing you mentioned with JDM Tom playing very low to the ground, not only then does he have the Rhine Shield and the bridge for cover, but it also means he's not in the direct line of sight of Hart on the Ana, and he knows that he has to be scared of Hart. So it'll be interesting to see if JDM Tom actually continues on with the Pharah, if he doesn't think that he can get that much value out of it, but he's actually building up to a barrage very quickly.
Yeah, and actually look at this, Roma definitely getting the advantage in terms of ult charge over Hart. Maybe that's because Hart has less to heal at the minute. Ali JMC pops the Valkyrie, trying to just buy a little bit of space with the team in terms of survivability. Dranda, can't quite tell where Dranda is. I do wonder if they're going for a cheeky flank just to contest the... No, in fact, there we go, I can see that outline. They are just over the side there. Diva Bomb from Extreme Chaos coming in over the top. Does manage to take out Ben, so that's a good pick. Very low shield for Lasers, and they need to pop this advantage and get in on top of Claymores if they have a hope of capping point A.
Yeah, I'd like to see JDM Tom using those rockets to act as that shield break and bring down the rest of Laser Zen's shield there, especially while he doesn't have the protective barrier available to him. But
Roma going down, Daxi going down, that's an aborted fight right there. Nighthawks do not stand a chance of winning.
Yeah, for sure. But hopefully, you know, if they can back out, they use the bulb again on a lost fight, and it's just such a shame to see these ultimates kind of be wasted when, if combined together properly, they could actually come in and have a lot of value. But, you know, they're going to have to back out here, and it's a shame because they don't have as many ultimates going into this next fight as they could have.
No, but again, we've got the potential online. If they can
Daxi's getting rid of the Earth Shatter.
If they can coordinate this Earth Shatter and the barrage in on top, you get even two on that. That is that fight wide open, especially if you can get the Lucio and deny any value from that sound barrier and get the barrage in over the top.
Yeah, I'd really like to see that. You just got to watch out for Echoic with the defense matrix.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Does manage to get two, but doesn't get the Lucio, so the sound barrier coming right in over the top. And we've seen again, Daxi spending a lot of time with that shield up. Earth Shatter from Lasers then manages to find Extreme Chaos. Extreme Chaos, the beneficiary of the Ana ult there. It's not going to be enough, unfortunately. Extreme Chaos does take out Laser Zen, but it's with two people down already. It's not enough, and the Diva Bomb comes in, taking out Ben. So there are no tanks for Claymores. Nighthawks, you need to get in on top of that and do what you can whilst you have this huge advantage.
Yeah, first of all, I was a little bit questioning the fact that Roma used the nano boost onto Extreme Chaos there to keep him alive, because it means it's not available for the future, but it's looking like Nighthawks are actually being able to move forward a little bit.
Yeah, but no, not with Roma out of the fight. No Ana, no healing, no anti-healing, no sleep. That's a lot of value and utility down, but Lasers then just getting the better of Daxi at every turn with this aggression.
That's kind of the disappointing thing, though, is like I said, like they're able to move forward a bit. Is that what we're getting excited about, you know?
Yeah.
they've got 30 seconds left. This is pretty much their last chance, and if they can't be aggressive on their normal player, they're going to be aggressive on their very last chance. They don't even have the Lucio to speed them in, and they're sticking with Daxi on the Reinhardt. So, there's the barrage.
Barrage does manage to take out the Reinhardt shield, and the follow-up takes out Ben. Daxi there securing the kill. Though we still have the Bob has been committed to the fight. I haven't quite seen where he's gone. Bob there
He's
just
there.
to provide. Thank you. Just to provide pressure onto that Reinhardt shield. We may see the starts, especially if Extreme Chaos can generate this ultimate in time. Daxi has the Earth Shatter. Doesn't manage. Oh no, Daxi gets 2. Echoic takes out Dranda. Is that going to be enough though? We are in overtime. It needs to be huge. Daxi finally starting to step to the plate with this hammer. We've got Extreme Chaos's self-destruct. It needs to be huge. We're dueling self-destructs. Extreme Chaos takes out 1, but it's Echoic with a better one, taking out 3. And it is just Daxi left on point.
Don't get off the point.
Almost gets the kill onto Ben, but no, lasers in with the strike in the back.
Right down to the very last HP there. Daxi's going to be kicking himself. And I was also like, overtime's going to go down very quickly. You don't want to charge too far off of the
the
point.
second he stepped off, that was my heart right in my mouth.
But I think also, we saw Hart use a lot of very well-timed anti-nades. Look at this play of the game here from Dranda. It's actually kind of nice to see the Nighthawks getting the play of the game there.
Small consolation. It was a good combo. It was nice aggression on the back of that. So really great to see.
Old school Grab Dragon, which is weird to call that old school now. I'll be honest. But no, I think at the end there we saw Hart just getting a lot of very well-timed anti-nades. Actually, we saw it a couple of times in the same fight, and he always had the projected barrier on him as well. So he was pretty much being kept very, very safe by his team, and really that's what brought Nighthawks down at the end.
Yeah, but it was still a good showing, to make it all the way through those 4 games, still clearly giving your all from Nighthawks. I think really, really great to see. Hopefully they don't come away from this too discouraged. Hopefully they go back and review this VOD and get a slightly better idea of what they can do better next time.
And actually that's almost kind of like a boon, is that they can do a VOD review of their game with a team who was so much higher than them, and maybe learn a little bit from what the Claymores were doing, and because it will prepare them for the higher opponents that they come to face, rather than just kind of preparing for someone who is a little bit better than them.
Yeah, hopefully when we see them matched against teams that are slightly more in the same SR range, we're going to see them be a bit more competitive, especially if they go away and learn from these experiences.
Yeah, but we definitely have to big up Claymores for just like how well they played as a team.
Yeah.
We've said this, but it all comes down to that team play. They said that they very, very much a 3-3 kind of team. We never really saw them come off of that.
No, and when it's working so effectively for you, why would you swap off? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And so it means that, we know how their goats is going forward, and ready to see them in other games. We'll kind of know what to expect from that. But if other things come out, or if another team actually manages to figure out a way to deal with their goats, are Claymore's going to be able to stand up to that? Can they run such an effective other composition?
So we are unfortunately out of time for today's maps. Going forward into next week, we're going to see, I believe...
the Centurions versus the Harriers, and the Rams versus the Swarm.
Thank you. You're much better at listening to producers.
I'm very excited for Centurions. As I say, that was where I grew up, is where they're based. It's not where I live.
Well,
Lionheart's my local team, but...
I see. So yeah, we were discussing earlier what we're looking forward to. So we're going to see a lot of investment for next week from Gio, rooting for that team.
I'll be cheering.
Yeah. But as I said, I'm afraid that's all we have time for this evening. If you want to get involved with any of the Overwatch activities that are happening, pop by your local Belong arena, find the team there. Get involved, tryouts, I think, probably missed for this season, but, there are several seasons throughout the year, so come along and get involved.
Yeah, and don't forget, there are 3 tiers of teams. You've got the Championship, the Challenger, and the Underground, so maybe if you don't feel confident enough that you're going to, maybe play in this level of Arena Clash, there are still other levels for just however much fun versus however competitive you want to be.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's for fun, so come along and I guarantee you, playing in a coordinated team is much better than your ladder experience.
Play some video games,
yeah? But yeah, go and find Belong Arenas on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, I believe. Basically, if it's and belong.gg
and
in
MySpace
fact.
and Bebo.
MySpace, Bebo, or social media. Search for belong.gg and you will find the accounts to follow. And until next time, this has been goodbye from me, Big Hungry Phil.
And you.